Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Dragon Ball. Sign in, obtain the immortal body at the beginning. Chapter 81. Obviously, this is Dr. Gro's final revenge. Fortunately, Goku's combat effectiveness has been greatly improved under his own death training. With more than 1,000 combat power, the android is not Wukong's opponent at all, and he is not even a sparring partner. Grandpa Turtle Immortal was fishing, and he caught an artificial person. Under Wukong's statement, Li Shu probably knew what had happened. To sum it up in one sentence, it is that the Turtle Immortal was attacked by an android when he was fishing. Fortunately, during this time, the Turtle Immortal was very experienced in death, and even with such a fatal injury, he still survived and waited for Wukong's rescue. The enraged Goku destroyed the blue-clothed android with just one move. Perhaps it was this unexpected death that made the Turtle Immortal unprepared. This was an extremely real death experience. Unlike the previous conscious death, he knew that he would not really die, so the idea of survival was not too strong. Thank you so much, Dr. Gro. Li Shu suddenly felt a little grateful to Dr. Gro, and then said, Wukong, don't wait, Teacher Wushan has succeeded, give him the immortal beans to eat. Succeeded? Did Grandpa Turtle Immortal become a super earthling? Wukong said in surprise, and hurriedly gave the fairy beans to the Turtle Immortal to eat. Li Shu felt the chi of the Turtle Immortal. It was still a familiar feeling, but there was a subtle change that could not be said. The Turtle Immortal sat up with a blank face, looked at Wukong and Li Shu in front of him, and said, I thought I was dead. I seem to have succeeded, but I don't feel any different than before. The Turtle Immortal said happily that he finally didn't have to experience the pain of death every day, but soon he became confused. His combat effectiveness has not been improved. But I feel that the chi in my body is more active. Li Shu said with a smile. Teacher Wushan, the characteristic of the super earthling bloodline lies in potential. You might as well practice for a while and then see the effect. Quote. It's time to eat. At this moment, Lan Chi's voice came from the Turtle Fairy house, and Wukong's eyes lit up, and he was the first to sit down at the table. At the end of the happy dinner time, everyone was happily watching the TV show. Li Shu suddenly thought of something and released Dr. Gro for everyone to visit. Li Shu's great change of life frightened everyone. Who's this old and ugly guy? Boomer suddenly exclaimed. As Yan Kong, she didn't have the slightest good impression of Dr. Gro. The Turtle Immortal was also curious and asked, This is the person you sealed with the demon sealing wave. Is there anything special about him? Is it an android? I couldn't feel his anger. Quote, after Li Shu's death cultivation, Wukong has mastered the Chi sense, although it is not as good as Li Shu's level 10 Chi sense, but there is also a level 3 or so. Li Shu said, yes, this is Dr. Gro, who developed an artificial man, and he has transformed himself into an artificial man. I have to say that he is a madman. I didn't expect him to be so ugly. Boomer looked disgusted. Goku circled around Dr. Gro and said, he looks very stupid, and I have a hard time believing that those powerful androids were made by him. Li Shu smiled, and did not explain the matter of the cyborg universal remote control, but said, Boomer, he will be your assistant in the future. I don't. It's ugly, and it does look dull. Boomer was disgusted, and his face was reluctant. Okay then. Li Shu didn't insist that since Boomer was not happy, he planned to rebuild a laboratory for Dr. Gro to study androids. He is still very optimistic about the future of androids, and Dr. Gro is a rare talent. On top of that, androids would be a great sparring partner. As their combat power improved, the Turtle Immortal's hypnotism became less and less effective for them, and it didn't last at all. Cyborgs, on the other hand, will kill you at all costs if they give a command. It can be said that it is very good, very easy to use. As for the future androids 17 and 18, and whether Shalu will appear, Li Shu doesn't bother to care. Improving one's own strength is the king. What's more, Android 17 is not a robot, but a population abducted by Dr. Gro and transformed into an android. When the time comes, go directly to the number 17 deity and create some opportunities for Klin, and the two may still have a chance to be together. It's really not okay. It's not impossible to make a wish to Shenlong and ask for a wife for Klin. Ding. Achievement Ring Quest. 10,000 flowers, not a leaf sticks to your body. Current progress 24/300. The voice of the system suddenly sounded in his head, making Li Shu a little confused. Quote. I haven't done anything, why did I increase my progress? Just then, his cell phone rang. Li Shu answered the phone and a familiar voice suddenly came from the other side. Are you free? Can you come and stay with me? The voice sounded familiar, and Li Shu quickly remembered who it was. Jing Yuya, did something happen? Li Shu noticed that something was wrong in the other party's voice, and he sounded very lost. Jing Yuya paused for a moment, and then said quietly, I resigned and wanted to talk to someone. Quote. Resigned. Want to talk to someone. I glanced at the sky outside the house, it was already the moon and stars, and then looked at the time. 21:43. Li Shu was silent, and found someone to talk to him at night, which made it difficult for him not to think elsewhere. Coupled with the sudden prompt of the system, it is self-evident what Jing Yuya wants to do. But she's married. Li Shu's heart began to do a fierce ideological struggle, to go or not to go. Is it up or not when you go? Didn't do this task. Increases combat power by 30%. Isn't it convenient? Jing Yuya's somewhat grumbling voice came from the phone. Li Shu hurriedly replied, no, where are you? I'll come over now. Quote. As a friend, my friend has encountered difficulties and frustrations, and he should care about them and comfort them. Li Shu quickly persuaded himself, and after getting the specific location and saying hello to Wukong, he flew away. It's so late, what is the eldest brother going to do? Wukong looked out the window suspiciously. The turtle immortal didn't make a sound, but laughed. With the gifts that Li Shu gave him, the turtle immortal has always felt that Li Shu and himself are fellow believers, but they are hidden very deeply, and they belong to the stuffy kind. It's really enviable to be young. The turtle immortal suddenly sighed with emotion, and went back to the room alone to watch a small movie. Nobikoma's yakitori shop. It's still the same position last time. Jing Yuya is looking out the window with her chin in one hand, drinking alone with a sullen drink, her face full of loneliness. Li Shu. Jing Yuya, whose eyes were blank, suddenly saw a familiar figure, her eyes suddenly lit up, and she shouted out the window. Li Shu greeted with a smile, walked into Yebi Little Bear's roast bird shop, and sat opposite Jing Yuya. There was a flush on Jing Yuya's cheeks, and 7 or 8 empty wine bottles were messily placed on the table, looking like she had drunk a lot of sake. Why did you quit all of a sudden? Li Shu poured himself half a glass of sake and took a small sip. By the way, I'm sorry for what happened last time, I really ran into an emergency, but it's been solved now. There was a hint of a lost smile on Jing Yuya's slightly drunk face, can you tell me what it is? Li Shu thought for a while and said seriously, my 2 friends died, and my brother almost died. Jing Yuya looked at Li Shu in astonishment, and the drunkenness that had been brewed was gone. I'm sorry, I didn't expect it to be so serious. Li Shu waved his hand and did not continue, but quietly listened to Jing Yuya tell her story. It turned out that she was the surviving person. Her husband is also a police officer. On the day of their wedding, an urgent mission suddenly interrupted their wedding. And her husband died in this mission. Just yesterday, her police officer father died of serious injuries in a mission, and she was on an important mission and was unable to see his father for the last time. It was her only relative. This experience made her decide to leave this profession and change to a new life, and she did. I'm the only one now. Jing Yuya showed a far-fetched smile and looked at Li Shu. I want to become a martial artist like you, can you teach me? I want to be as powerful as you are, and arrest all the wicked and criminals. So that no one will be sacrificed. Li Shu looked at her silently, this was too miserable. Ding. Congratulations. Trigger the hidden achievement quest, apprentice. Quote. Mission description. Recruit Jing Yuya as an apprentice and make her win the top 3 of the 22nd world number 1 martial arts conference, which is considered to be mission completion. Quest reward. Ears of battle. Ears of fighting. Li Shu's eyes lit up, he deeply understood the power of fighting skills, and there was no reason to refuse. And he didn't intend to refuse. Yes, Li Shu gave an affirmative answer. Great, I didn't expect you to promise me. Jing Yuya happily stood up from her seat. Li Shu smiled, it seemed that he had misunderstood the other party, and it was all because of the 5,000 T learning materials, which affected his judgment. But that's fine, he doesn't have to worry about completing tasks and communicating deeply. Before I knew it, it was past 11 o'clock in the evening, and Nobiko's roast bird shop was about to close. Li Shujun, do you need me to arrange a room for you? I'm a member of the Big Sword Hotel next door. Wild Bear said very enthusiastically, and his smile looked very ambiguous. Glancing at the drunken Jing Yuya, Li Shu nodded. By the way, I'll trouble you, send my apprentice to the hotel. Me, Nobi Bear pointed to his nose in disbelief. At the same time, a hint of disappointment flashed in Jing Yuya's eyes, who was clubbing her head. Yes, I'm going with you, I drank a little too much, and I can't help her. Li Shu added. Oh, I know, I'll clean it up right away. Yebi Xiaoshang said with a smile, thinking that Li Shu wanted to retain his physical strength, and he would do big things later. Is worthy of Li Shujun, thinking about things as thoughtful. Under the stimulation of alcohol, Jing Yuya's already reddish cheeks looked even more rosy, like ripe peach red and tender. She stared at Li Shu drunkenly, and asked with a sigh of relief, Master, do you care about a woman who is married for the second time? Quote. Li Shu is silent, how can you let me answer this? I'm very concerned, okay. I don't care. Considering Jing Yuya's tragic experience, Li Shu had to take care of the other party's emotions. Hearing Li Shu's answer, Jing Yuya laughed stupidly, staring at Li Shu drunken and not speaking. It didn't take long for Yebi Little Bear to clean up and call a female clerk to help Jing Yuya, while he himself was supporting Li Shu. The group walked towards the Big Sword Hotel next door. Li Shujun, you are so amazing, you can make such a beautiful girlfriend, I am really envious, don't you know, that tigress in my family. Until the other party whispered. I have super thin bubble gum, do you want it? Eating is the same as not eating. Quote. Huh, Li Shu suddenly wanted to listen to it, and said in surprise, how thin? Quote. 0.01. Nobi Bear smiled. Li Shu exclaimed, it's amazing, but I never use that thing. Quote. Awesome. Wild Bear couldn't help but give a thumbs up. At the Big Sword Hotel, Yebi Little Bear quickly opened the room, and after sending the two of them, he left very interestingly. Looking at the graceful figure on the bed, and the looming, Li Shu subconsciously swallowed his saliva and went to take a bath. Study materials, I misunderstood you. While taking a bath, Li Shu sighed with emotion, a woman's mind is really elusive. On the other side, Jing Yuya, who was lying on the bed and pretending to be asleep, only felt that her heart was pounding and her whole body was hot. Taking advantage of Li Shu's bath, she carefully got up from the bed, and then looked at herself carefully in the mirror. It's a shame. Looking at her red face, Jing Yuya's heart was full of shyness and an indescribable sense of excitement. She never thought that she would seduce a man today. At the moment, the mood is both expectant and scared, and my heart is very chaotic. At that moment, the sound of the shower gradually stopped. Jing Yuya panicked back on the bed and closed her eyes. However, after waiting for a long time, she didn't feel any other movement. As the minutes passed, her heart began to become agitated, and the man seemed to disappear, and there was no more movement. She didn't want to wait any longer, so she pretended to wake up and turned over, and her eyes opened a gap in her eyes. No one. The hotel rooms are not very large, and you can see the whole picture with just one glance. At this moment, Jing Yuya felt that her heart was suddenly empty, and she felt a sense of loss. She hurriedly got up and walked to the bathroom, which was empty. What a sin. Li Shu left after taking a shower, and if he didn't leave, he was afraid that he would really not be able to control it. That's 30% combat power. Li Shu returned to the hotel and woke up Jing Yuya, who was still asleep, early in the morning. Jing Yuya looked a little haggard, and she didn't look like she had rested well. She did have insomnia last night, tossing and turning in bed, her mind full of everything that happened today, and she couldn't sleep. Until 5 o'clock in the morning, I finally fell asleep and chatted for a while, and after 5 o'clock, Li Shu knocked on her door. Li Shubin wanted to fly back to Guixian Island directly with Jing Yuya, but considering that he couldn't have physical contact with the opposite gender during the mission stage, he gave up this idea. Today I will take you to meet some partners, and in the coming days, they will teach you some basic skills of cultivation. He has no experience as a disciple, especially in the process of going from 0 to 1. However, in this regard, the turtle immortals are obviously very experienced. In the face of such a cute and beautiful girl, I think the turtle fairy will be happy. Jing Yuya looked at Li Shu in a trance, and smiled listlessly. I'll clean it up. Quote. You don't look like you're resting well, and eating this will help you get back in shape. Li Shu took out an immortal bean and handed it over. Jing Yuya took the green bean suspiciously, and ate it without the slightest hesitation. In the next second, her eyes widened and she looked at Li Shu incredulously. Her original tiredness was really swept away. What kind of beans is this? It's amazing. What you just ate is a fairy bean. As long as there is still a breath left, you can heal instantly after eating it. Li Shu didn't hide it, and said with a smile, it's just that I don't have many immortal beans, so it's a meeting gift from the master. Ah, it's too precious, and I haven't prepared for the apprenticeship yet. Jing Yuya was shocked, and fumbled around in a panic, trying to find something valuable and meaningful as an apprenticeship. I've already thought of it for you. Li Shu interrupted Jing Yuya's fumbling and said solemnly, I ask you to win the top 3 in the world's #1 martial arts conference in 3 years' time. This is the best apprenticeship for me, do you have confidence? Quote. Huh. Jing Yuya was stunned. Judging from her expression, she had no confidence at all. She had only heard of the world's #1 martial arts conference, and she had not participated in or watched it. When she heard that at the martial arts conference, all the outstanding martial artists from all over the world were gathered, and she didn't have the confidence to answer this question. Don't worry too much, you just have to work hard to cultivate, and I'll leave the rest to master. Looking at Jing Yuya with a cute face, Li Shu expressed his understanding. After all, an ordinary person wants to win the top 3 places in the world's #1 martial arts conference within 3 years, and any purebred earthling will be stunned if he hears it. Don't worry, I'll bring out your potential before heading to the ashram. I saw Li Shu raise his hand and wave, and a blood-colored ball of light flew into her body. Then, nothing happened. Blood activation did not require physical contact, so Li Shu said with satisfaction, okay, we can go. Jing Yuya looked at her body blankly. If she hadn't seen Li Shu's skills, it would be hard for her to believe that the man in front of her was not a liar. By the way, do you know how to fly a helicopter? Yes. Jing Yuya was finally able to talk, and soon the two of them got on the capsule plane and sped towards Guixian Island. On Turtle Immortal Island, Goku and Turtle Immortal are doing warm-up training. After a few one-finger push-ups, the Turtle Immortal was pleasantly surprised to find that the chi in his body seemed to have become stronger. The results were better than the results of his secret cultivation some time ago, and this discovery simply made him unbelievable. Grandpa Turtle Immortal, your chi seems to have become stronger. Under Li Shu's death practice, both Wukong and the Turtle Immortal have mastered the sense of chi, and can control their own chi as well as sense the chi of others. Yes, it's incredible. Is this the change brought about by the bloodline of super earthlings? At this moment, the Turtle Immortal regained his confidence, and he felt that he could do it again, and it was just around the corner to catch up with the steps of his apprentices. Just then, a helicopter appeared in their sight. It's the eldest brother. It's really strange. How can I not feel the anger of the eldest brother? How did the eldest brother do it? Li Shu seems to have brought back a cute girl. Is it his girlfriend? Girlfriend. That's great. It turns out that the eldest brother went to catch his girlfriend last night. It must be delicious. Quote. Stupid. Girlfriends can't eat it. Boomer is Yamucha's girlfriend, do you understand? I see. Wukong swallowed with some regret. Soon the helicopter landed on Guixian Island, and Li Shu and Jing Yuya walked out. After seeing Jing Yuya's appearance clearly, the Turtle Immortal's eyes were straight. Not only is it better than Boomer's figure, but it is also cuter than Boomer. When they first met, Jing Yuya looked a little cramped, with a cute smile on her face. This is Teacher Wushan, you can also call him a Turtle Immortal. Teacher Wushan, is it the legendary martial arts god of the martial arts teacher? Jing Yuya was extremely shocked. Although she was a police officer before, she had also heard the legend of the Turtle Immortal, and she didn't expect to see the legendary character today. The Turtle Immortal suddenly laughed proudly, nodded in a friendly manner, and said, it should be me. Quote. Hello Mr. Wu Tian, please advise. Jing Yuya hurriedly bowed and made a 90-degree salute. Li Shu continued. This is my younger brother, Sun Wukong. Quote. Wow, your brother is so cute. Hello Goku. Jing Yuya smiled and said hello. Wukong stared at his big eyes and said curiously, "You must be a girl, right? There is no small." Quote, "Apprentice." The Turtle Immortal and Wukong were stunned and looked at Jing Yuya in astonishment. "Grandpa Turtle Immortal, didn't you say it was a girlfriend?" Goku looked at the Turtle Immortal strangely. Hearing the 3 words of girlfriend, a flush suddenly appeared on Jing Yuya's cheeks. The Turtle Immortal also smiled awkwardly and muttered, "I'm guessing too." Later, Li Shu called Boomer and Lan Qi and introduced each other. After the introduction, Li Shu announced, "In the future, Jing Yuya will practice with us." Quote, "Regarding the cultivation of Jing Yuya's martial arts enlightenment, I will trouble Teacher Wushan." "Teacher Wushan, you won't refuse, right?" The Turtle Immortal readily agreed. At this time, Li Shu suddenly discovered that the combat power of the Turtle Immortal had been increased to 201. If memory serves, it was only 163 yesterday. Is this the potential in the blood of super Earthlings? It's amazing. Such a discovery made Li Shu look forward to Jing Yuya's growth even more. The practice of Jing Yuya began. At the request of the Turtle Immortal, Jing Yuya regarded Li Shu as an opponent and showed off her martial arts skills. Wa fist embroidered leg hit Li Shu's body. Even if the pain was magnified by 200 times, he didn't feel the pain at all. It felt like a masseur who had no strength and was massaging him. Jing Yuya quickly got tired, panting and holding her knees, looking at the man in front of her in disbelief. Even if she already knew that Li Shu was very powerful, but after experiencing it herself, she knew that this kind of strength was beyond her comprehension. Li Shu also looked at Jing Yuya in disbelief. Combat strength, 8. This is an increase of 5 points of combat power. Li Shu was extremely shocked. You must know that Bola under Kalanta is only 10 points of combat power. And Jing Yuya just scratched herself and didn't even tickle, but she actually increased her combat power by 5 points, and it was only 10 minutes before and after. It's incredible. He had been tired for a day of heavy cultivation in the early stage, and he had only increased his combat power by 1 point, still with the assistance of the super cultivation potion. Is this the bloodline of the super Earthlings sealed by the genetic lock? It's terrifying. Such a subtle improvement, with the aura of the Turtle Immortal and Wukong, could not be detected yet, and they didn't know what was happening. Next, the Turtle Immortal began to teach Jing Yuya some simple basic skills of the Turtle Immortal flow. He demonstrated over and over again, Jing Yuya studied over and over again, and time passed minute by minute. Li Shu watched silently from the side, only to see that the combat power above the heads of the two would be added from time to time. Super Earthlings have such a strong bloodline. Why didn't I feel it at the time? Li Shu was a little puzzled, and he was now fused with bloodlines, combining the advantages of Saiyan bloodlines and Super Earthling bloodlines. But when I do these basic training and fight with people, I don't feel the improvement of my combat effectiveness at all. Soon he figured out that with his current combat strength, he had already passed this stage. Ordinary cultivation intensity is no longer able to stimulate the potential in the body and convert it into combat power. Judging by the rhythm of the Turtle Immortal and Jing Yuya's combat power increase. Obviously, Jing Yuya's combat power increase speed is much faster than that of the Turtle Immortals. When the Turtle Immortal's combat power increased to 212, it stopped rising, and there was no movement for a long time. And Jing Yuya's combat effectiveness is still steadily improving. As it turned out, his conjecture was correct. Potential is also phased. Li Shu calls it the initial stage of potential for the time being. In other words, the Turtle Immortal's primary stage potential had been exhausted, and ordinary cultivation had no effect on him in the slightest. The improvement of combat power brings an all-round improvement of the body, and Jing Yuya quickly mastered the basic fist and foot kung fu of the Turtle Immortal flow. The basic training has come to an end. Li Shu, your apprentice is very talented, he mastered it so quickly. The Turtle Immortal was amazed, but he was really surprised by the change in Jing Yuya. This completely broke his previous understanding. He remembers that when he first started practicing, in order to master this basic set of fist and foot kung fu, he practiced for several years and suffered a lot. On the other hand, Jing Yuya just broke out in a hot sweat, and he caught up with his years of penance. Judging from this progress, it won't be long before Jing Yuya's strength can reach the results of his more than 300 years of cultivation. It's incredible. This kind of talent is much stronger than Li Shu and Wukong when they first came to practice. Li Shu didn't hide it, and explained with a smile, Teacher Wushan, like you, she has also awakened the Super Earthling bloodline. Quote. What? The turtle immortal was taken aback and looked at Jing Yuya in surprise. I didn't expect such a weak and lovely little girl in front of me to have the same experience as him. That fear between life and death still makes him shudder. And the little girl in front of her actually survived. It's really a man who can't look good, and the sea can't fight. Super Earthling blood. Jing Yuya asked in surprise, what do you mean? Li Shu immediately told Jing Yuya the legend of the Super Earthling that he had fabricated. Jing Yuya suddenly reacted, and suddenly realized, it turns out that your strange behavior this morning helped me awaken the power of the bloodline. Quote. Yes, so there's a lot of potential in you waiting for you to tap into it. The turtle immortal was speechless. He had experienced many deaths in a lifetime, and finally awakened the bloodline of the Super Earthling, but Li Shu just waved his hand and helped Jing Yuya awaken. This huge contrast made the turtle immortal feel mixed in his heart, and his eyes gradually became resentful, and he looked at Li Shu. Li Shu hurriedly explained, Teacher Wushan, I also had a feeling after you successfully awakened, and instantly had an epiphany of a faster and safer awakening method. Quote. It's time to eat. Lan Qi's voice rang out from inside the room. Let's go have breakfast. The turtle immortal didn't believe Li Shu's nonsense, but he didn't dwell on the matter either. He had already seen that Li Shu was hiding an unknown secret. He didn't ask any more questions, and took the group back to the Turtle Fairy house with a lot of laughter and enjoyed a rich breakfast. Breakfast ended in the wind and clouds. Looking at Wukong and Li Shu's high bulging bellies, Jing Yuya was dumbfounded. They actually ate more than 200 buns. Last night at the yakiniku shop, she saw Li Shu's appetite, and now it seems that Li Shu was very restrained at that time. After breakfast, Li Shu called Dr. Gro and asked him to follow Goku's arrangement and act as Goku's sparring partner. And handed over the cultivation of Jing Yuya to the turtle immortals. After leaving a bag of immortal beans, under Jing Yuya's reluctant gaze, Li Shu left Guixian Island and began the cultivation of his Love Saint mission. There are 300 admiration of the opposite gender, and there are 276 missing. Li Shu, who flew on dinosaur legs, touched his chin with one hand, thinking about how to complete this task. After thinking about it, Li Shu decided to find an artist company, practice for 2.5 days, and then make his debut. With Kun's power, he should be able to complete the task in no time, right? It didn't take long for Li Shu to come to the Western capital, and after a little inquiry, he came to the best artist company in the Western capital to participate in the interview. He decided to investigate the strength of the company first. If it was good, he would buy it directly, and then use all the company's resources to package himself, advertise overwhelmingly, and quickly harvest female fans. Macho Super Sweet Artist Company, Interview Department. What kind of talent do you have? The interviewer is a beautiful OL, and the moment Li Shu came in, her unique temperament and handsome appearance deeply attracted her. It's a little bit, but I'm better at singing, dancing, and rapping. Li Shu's answer is not very good. Basically every artist who comes to participate in the interview has the same answer to this question. The interviewer, Hashimoto Kona, stared at Li Shu and thought for a moment, and decided to let him have a rap on the spot. Li Shu was not ambiguous, he didn't think about it, and came directly to a paragraph. I was born in Baozi Shanlu, and I dream of being a rap leader. At the end of a short rap, Hashimoto Kona's eyes suddenly lit up. Good, you have a talent for becoming an idol. Congratulations, you passed the interview. In this way, Li Shu successfully joined the Macho Super Sweet Artist Company. After 2.5 days of practice, and through the covert investigation of stealth techniques, his overall view of the company is not bad. Macho Super Sweet Company has good strength, a large number of media resources and an excellent public relations team. Li Shu didn't say a word and bought the company directly. Anyway, money is just a string of numbers for him, and he doesn't feel distressed at all. Under the operation of capital, Li Shu only relied on one move, Kunjong, to gain the love of a large number of women in just 1 month. Ding! Congratulations! Exceed the achievement ring task. 10,000 flowers in the bush, not a single leaf sticks to the body. Quote. Mission progress. 387,965 Quest Reward. Love Saint Title. Achievement Points Reward. 5,000. Bonus Reward. The title of Love Saint has been upgraded to the title of Gold Medal Love Saint. Extra Achievement. 5,000. Gold Medal Love Saint combat power increased by 100%. After completing the task, Li Shu directly sold the company, and made another big profit under the double money buff. Combat power has come to 7,844. The achievement value has once again exceeded the 10,000 point mark. There are still 90,000 short of increasing the 100,000 achievement points of the immortal body. Li Shu flew back to Guixian Island in a good mood. Before he landed, he saw Jing Yuya beating the turtle immortal from a distance. Combat Strength. 386 Combat Strength. 323. The former is the combat power of Jing Yuya, and the latter is the combat power of the turtle immortals. This situation made Li Shu feel very surprised. Obviously the two of them are super earthlings of blood, why is the gap so big? In the course of 1 month, the turtle immortal only increased by 111 points of combat power, while Jing Yuya increased by 384 points. More than 3 times the gap. On the other side, the combat power of Goku and Dr. Gro has also been amazingly improved, and the two have fought back and forth. However, Dr. Gro relies on his immortal body and has the characteristic that androids are not afraid of pain, so he basically does not defend, and adopts a life-fighting style. It seems that the two are evenly matched, but as time goes on, the losing side will inevitably be Goku. Sun Wukong. Combat Strength. 4,933. Dr. Gro. Combat Strength. 5,182. As soon as Li Shu approached, the 4 of them stopped one after another. Big brother. Master. Li Shu is back. Except for Dr. Gro, who had no eyes in his eyes, the other 3 greeted Li Shu one after another. I haven't seen you for a month, I didn't expect everyone's progress to be so great. Li Shu smiled and responded one by one. The turtle immortal said with a blue nose and swollen face, Li Shu, I can't take this apprentice of yours anymore, you see that you beat me to the ground, and you don't know how to respect the elderly at all. That's what you should fight. Jing Yuya said angrily. After a month of getting along, the legendary image of the turtle immortal collapsed in Jing Yuya's heart. This is a perverted old man who doesn't change his life. I also know each other a lot, and I don't have so many worries when I speak. After Li Shu's understanding, the turtle immortal peeked at Jing Yuya to go to the toilet once today, and wanted to peek at the bottom of his skirt once during dinner, but he was caught by Jing Yuya. Although it didn't succeed, it was really infuriating. If Li Shu hadn't come back in time, the turtle immortal would have been beaten half to death by her. Li Shu laughed, it's okay, although teacher Wu Tian is a little, he hasn't succeeded once, haha. Quote. The next few days were a day-after-day practice. It is worth mentioning that with the help of the Android Handbook, Boomer finally developed the first android. It took 2 months. Combat Strength. 1733. Li Shu was stunned when he looked at the artificial man in front of him who was charred on the outside and tender on the inside, and also exuded the smell of meat. It's a little ugly, but there's no way, if it's a real person to transform it, it will look a lot better. This artificial human body was bred from your dinosaur legs. Listening to Boomer's explanation, Li Shu recalled that Boomer did ask him for dozens of caddies of dinosaur legs for research at that time. I didn't expect it to be used to cultivate the body of an artificial person. Such a wild imagination. It's worthy of a genius girl. Ideographic period. Even Dr. Gro, who was on the side, was stunned, and his godless eyes suddenly lit up. How did you do that? You don't even need to catch a living person to transform it. As if he had discovered a new world, Dr. Gro excitedly stroked Dinosaur Man 1. That's right, that's the name Boomer gave her, the first android she built. An artificial human with dinosaur burnt skin but a human appearance, looking very strange and ugly. Boomer didn't want to pay attention to Dr. Gro's ugly fool. Does anyone want to try the strength of Dinosaur Man 1? Boomer looked around expectantly. The first android product can achieve 1733 combat effectiveness, which is already very good. It can even be said that it is very powerful, enough to dominate the Earth. Provided, of course, that there are no aliens. For example, Li Shu and Wukong. In order not to dampen Boomer's confidence, Li Shu stopped Wukong, who was about to move, and said, Jing Yuya, you go and try. Combat Strength, 573. Jing Yuya nodded, walked to the opposite side of Dinosaur 1 with curiosity in her eyes, and made a starting pose. Boomer immediately gave an order, and Dinosaur 1 disappeared in an instant. So fast, I can't see the action at all. Jing Yuya's pupils contracted suddenly, her whole body tensed, and her eyes quickly scanned her surroundings, full of vigilance, intending to respond to all changes with no change. At this moment, a strong wind came from behind him. The moment she dodged away, her face changed suddenly. The crowd watching the battle from the sidelines also looked surprised. Boomer was the only one, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. I saw that Dinosaur number 1's fist turned a corner. Such an unreasonable scene made Jing Yuya's brain not react for a moment, and she looked confused. Bang! With a muffled sound, Dinosaur number 1's bent fist hit her in the jaw, flew up dozens of meters with her head up, and fell to the ground fiercely, losing her ability to fight. How? Li Shu and Wukong, do you want to try it? Boomer looked at the crowd triumphantly, his face full of praise on his face. Li Shu smiled and withdrew the hand that had stopped Wukong. Wukong wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and said excitedly, then I'll try it. Quote, made with Big Brother's dinosaur legs, it should be edible, right? It smells pretty good. If you take a bite, Boomer shouldn't blame me, right? Boomer, I'm ready. At Goku's impatient urging, Boomer announces the start. Dinosaur 1 disappeared into place at breakneck speed. However, his opponent at the moment is Goku. His proud speed is invisible in Goku's eyes. I saw Wukong grinning, and suddenly opened his mouth at the air on the left. Phew! Dinosaur number 1's extremely fast body stopped and let out an exclamation. He was not afraid of pain but frightened. What is this for? What's going on? Why bite my leg? He felt an amazing tearing force that was frantically gnawing at his calf muscles. In the blink of an eye, a piece of meat was ripped off. He stared blankly at Goku, who was munching on it, with a look of horror in his eyes. Wow, it's so delicious. Wukong swallowed it in a few bites, and looked at the bewildered Dinosaur number 1 with burning eyes. The next battle turned into a chase. Dinosaur number 1 runs in front, and Goku chases and gnaws behind. It didn't take long for Dinosaur 1's body to become cratered. Although it has inherited some of the characteristics of dinosaur legs and is slowly recovering, it is not enough to eat compared to the speed at which Goku eats. Eventually, Dinosaur 1 gave up on resisting and burst into tears as he watched Goku gnaw himself into a skeleton. Bones made of metal that shine in the sun. It's okay that this guy has a bit of a bottom line and didn't eat his head. Boomer, you're amazing. It's such a powerful food. Goku didn't hesitate to praise himself, and he said to Bulma with a burst of, you're amazing. It's just a little bit not enough to eat. Can you make it bigger next time, a little? Wukong gestured with both hands, and recycled lead drew a large circle. Boomer stared at Goku blankly, unable to speak for a long time. She thought that Dinosaur number 1 might not be able to beat Li Shu and Wukong, but she never thought that it would be such a result. Dinosaur number 1, which was painstakingly manufactured, was actually used as food. Dinosaur number 1 stood up at this time, covered his face and cried bitterly in front of Boomer. Beautiful and wise Miss Boomer, the outside world is too terrible, I want to go home. This long list of titles was written into the program by Boomer, and she was quite satisfied with the title at first, but now it was only embarrassing. She decided to change the procedure later. Boomer, your Dinosaur 1 is beyond my imagination, do you still need dinosaur legs? Li Shu took out the oversized dinosaur legs, walked up to Boomer, and said sincerely. Getting Li Shu's praise made Boomer's mood much better, stretched out 5 fingers, and said, this time I want 500 pounds. When my Dinosaur number 2 comes out, I must beat Goku up. Drive Grow has mastered genetic technology, maybe you can try to work with him. With that, Li Shu punched Dr. Grow's head, startling Boomer. Soon Dr. Grow's head grew again, and he looked insensitive, as if it wasn't him who had just been shot in the head. You see, he has incorporated my genes into the androids, has the characteristics of a partially immortal body, and every time he dies and is reborn, his combat power can be improved. In the death practice more than a month ago, everyone knew that Li Shu had an immortal body, and he had no idea of hiding it. At first, everyone thought it was rare, but over time, it was like that. After Wukong knew about this, in the sparring with Li Shu, he completely let go of himself. But he's so ugly that it affects my mood. Hearing Li Shu's proposal, Boomer didn't think about it for a second, shook his head and said, and there is a record of artificial human gene fusion technology in the manual, but I haven't studied it yet. Quote, I can have plastic surgery. Dr. Grow, who was silent, suddenly spoke, and there seemed to be light in his cloudy eyes. Boomer still shook his head, the skin is wrinkled. Quote, I can graft skin. You're too short. Dr. Grow was speechless for a moment, he couldn't even increase his height. What an abomination. Ding. Congratulations. Trigger the hidden achievement quest, Dr. Grow's desire. Quote, mission statement. To facilitate Dr. Grow's collaboration with Boomer. Reward. Dragon Ball Boosting Potion. Dragon Ball Boosting Potion. After use, the cooldown time of the Dragon Ball is permanently reduced by 50%. Well, Li Shu was stunned for a moment, and then said to Dr. Grow, have you ever heard of broken bone augmentation surgery? Broken bones are getting taller. Dr. Grow shook his head blankly, he had never heard of this technique. Li Shu was a little surprised, and immediately gave an order. From today onwards, your main task is to have plastic surgery, skin grafting, and research out the technique of increasing the height of broken bones to increase your own height until Boomer. Quote, come, Boomer, tell him what you need. Boomer was a little reluctant at first, but after thinking about it, he thought it was quite interesting, so he agreed. Dr. Grow was ecstatic, wasn't it plastic surgery, skin grafting, and height gain? As long as he masters a more powerful android technology, it is possible for him to get rid of Li Shu's control. Immediately, Dr. Grow described Boomer's needs. As for Dr. Grow's thoughts, Li Shu saw through it at a glance. But he wasn't worried. The Android Handbook is given by the system. Artificial Universal Remote Control is also given by the system. No matter how awesome Dr. Grow is it awesome over the system? Even if he is a peerless genius, he has really researched an android that is even more powerful than the Android Handbook and can get rid of the control of the Android Universal Remote Control. Finally, this technology will also be systematically included in the Android Handbook. And he only needs to raise the Android Universal Remote Control once, maybe twice. The end result will be the same. A month later. Ding. Congratulations. Get a new item, Super Bean Jar. Quote, Ness. Li Shu was overjoyed and took out the Super Immortal Bean can from the Universal Ascension box. During this period of cultivation, the consumption of Immortal Beans was extremely large, so he gave the Immortal Bean cans every day for promotion opportunities. The hard work paid off, and it was finally upgraded to another level. He also thought that if he failed again today, he would go to Kalanta and come back with a few jars of dried fish. Super Fairy Bean can automatically produce 18 fairy beans every day. 18 pills, which is completely enough for the consumption of daily cultivation, and there can be a surplus that can be saved. Even so, Li Shu decided to go to Kalanta and trick a few jars of fairy beans back. Because he suddenly remembered that Yasuo was about to appear. When the time comes, he will finish the fairy beans of the cat Immortal alone. Kalanta. The cat fairy looked at the mountains of dried fish piled up in front of him, and his eyes were straight. Cat Immortal, it's not enough, I just bought a cat star food company, and I asked them to supply you with a ton of small dried fish of various flavors every month, and send it to the bottom of the Kalanta. Li Shu spat and continued. If you are tired of eating, you ask them to change whatever flavor you want. You can change whatever flavor you want, you can change whatever variety you want, anyway, you can tell them what you want to eat. Yes, they will think to your taste and do better. No, they will do everything they can to research and develop. The cat fairy couldn't wait to pick up a bag of dried fish and eat it, and his delicious eyes narrowed into a slit. I also have all kinds of colors, all kinds of materials, all kinds of types of yarn balls. With a wave of Li Shu's hand, it was dozens of boxes. And laser pointers. If you're bored and no one is teasing the cat. Bah, there's no one to play with you, and I still have an edible android dinosaur number 1. If you're hungry while playing, just take a bite. Just ask you if you're happy. The Cat Fairy ate bag after bag of small dried fish, and his small eyes were full of incredulity as he looked at Li Shu, who was talking non-stop. To be honest, he was touched. For more than 800 years, he has never had such pleasure as he does today. But he also knows that if he has nothing to do, he will either be a traitor or a thief. However, he was very useful, and most importantly, Li Shu had passed his test. He was also very optimistic about the young martial artist in front of him. Li Shu, just say what you want. The Cat Fairy ate 28 bags of dried fish in one go, tasted each flavor once, touched his stomach with satisfaction, and looked at Li Shu with a smile. Hey, Li Shu smiled embarrassedly. Can you give me those jars of fairy beans? Quote. Exclamation mark quote. The Cat Fairy was shocked, and immediately felt that the small dried fish was not so delicious. Do you know how long I've been saving those 2 jars of fairy beans? Li Shu scratched his head, he really didn't know. 800 years. Quote exclamation mark quote. Li Shu was shocked. 800 years. Oh my god, Yasuo alone has shown off 800 years of fairy bean production. And the production of fairy beans is getting smaller and smaller. After looking at the small dried fish, and then at the wool ball, the Cat Fairy stretched out his paws and pulled a few times. I can only give you a cylinder. Good. Li Shu agreed without saying a word. Although the plot has changed dramatically, the great demon king of Vic is no longer a threat. Wukong may not even meet Yasuo in flesh. Then naturally you won't come to Kalanta, the fairy bean of the Ho-Ho Cat Immortal. But no one can say what will happen in the future, so it's better to take it away in advance. I can get a tank today, and if I come a few more times, maybe I can get another half tank. Have you ever heard of super divine water? After playing with the Cat Fairy for a while, Li Shu was about to leave, but was stopped by the Cat Fairy. A new variety of boiled water? Li Shu asked with a puzzled pretense. He had already drunk the super god water once, and it had no effect when he took it again. However, you can take it back to Jingnuya, Goku, and the Turtle Immortal to taste. No, super divine water has unpredictable divine power, which can trigger its own potential, improve its combat effectiveness, and improve your strength for several years of cultivation in a short period of time. The Cat Fairy's expression became serious. Ding! Congratulations! Trigger the achievement quest, Will of the First Celestials. Mission description. Pass the test of the first generation of gods on the earth and get the Super God Water. Mission reward. Super God Water Cup. Super God Water Cup. You can refill the Super God Water infinitely. The first gods. Isn't the god Vic? Because the memory is so long, Li Shu, who has almost forgotten some details in the plot, was a little confused when he heard the task. How did a first-generation god emerge? But it doesn't matter anymore. The Super Divine Water Infinite Refill Cup is very emotional to listen to. How can I get the Super Divine Water? Li Shu hurriedly asked. The Cat Fairy had intended to give Li Shu a chance, so naturally he would not hide it, and told Li Shu how to obtain it. That water tank is connected to the iceberg labyrinth, and the super divine water is hidden in the dark cave deep in the iceberg labyrinth. I'll pick you up when you get the super divine water. Li Shu nodded, jumped into the water tank, and suddenly felt that the sky was spinning, and all around him fell into darkness. I don't know how long it took, and the snow-white light pierced the darkness. Li Shu appeared in a world of ice and snow, full of smooth ice crystals. The sky was overcast, and black clouds obscured the sky, but the light from nowhere shone on this land of ice and snow. Li Shugong walked a few steps, looked at the intersection in all directions, and fell into deep thought. He couldn't tell the way. Immediately soared into the sky, flying higher and higher, wanting to climb high and look far away to find the right direction of the iceberg maze. Suddenly, a gust of wind struck, and a sudden blizzard struck. But this strong blizzard, except for affecting the line of sight, had no effect on Li Shu. At the same time, he sensed an unfamiliar aura. When I looked closely, it turned out that this sudden blizzard was released by a huge ice crystal snow monster. Combat strength, 138. So weak. Li Shu directly poofed, and a ray of energy shot out, killing the snow monster that could release a blizzard. As soon as the ice crystal snow monster died, the blizzard suddenly stopped. Li Shu, who had regained his sight, quickly found his way and sped away towards the dark cave kiln in the distance. With his current strength, this iceberg maze can be said to be a low-level copy. At this moment, he suddenly felt a slight tremor in the earth, and a faint breath suddenly appeared in his perception. And this breath is slowly climbing. Li Shu roughly estimated that the combat power was about 300 points. This is the will of the first gods. Li Shu was a little disappointed, thinking that the first generation of heavenly gods would be some kind of hidden big boss, but the combat effectiveness was not as good as his apprentice Jing Yuya. However, it is also possible that the other party can control his own aura and hide his strength. It shouldn't be very likely. Even if you hide your strength, it won't be too outrageous, otherwise Wukong in the original book won't be able to get super divine water. Despite this, Li Shu still maintained a trace of vigilance. Li Shu, who was able to fly, did not have the slightest difficulty for him, and soon entered the dark cave. Why is it so bright inside? What about the dark cave kiln? Li Shu was ready to adapt to the darkness, and the result was as bright as the outside, completely out of character. After walking about a kilometer, something happened that shocked Li Shu. He actually saw his home in his previous life on a cliff. Li Shu was stunned, a little incredulous. That's his hometown. Typical rural courtyard structure. A two-story brick house painted with a layer of white paint. It looks ordinary, but it makes Li Shu's heart shake. Since the death of his parents, he has rarely returned except for annual sacrifices. At that moment, a peasant woman with a wrinkled face and dull and sallow skin pushed open the door. Weathered by the wind and sun, the skin loses its original radiance and elasticity. It looks dry. The peasant woman's shriveled face showed a touch of love, and she smiled gently. It's getting dark, go home and eat, your father is already impatient. Li Shu looked at the woman in front of him in a daze, although he knew that all this was fake. But he couldn't control his emotions at the moment, and his nose was sore, as if something was soaking his eyes. The vision becomes blurred, shrouded in a dreamlike world of mist. He was a little confused about reality. Mom, Li Shu shouted softly. He could feel his own voice, which became a little choked. There was a boulder pressing against his chest, making his breathing much heavier. What are you doing standing stupidly? Come in and eat yet. The woman leaned sideways and beckoned to him, the familiar voice gradually awakening his memories that had been sealed for many years. Why are you still crying? Is it that Tizu is bullying you again? Seeing that he had not moved for a long time, the woman walked straight over, her face full of helplessness. Without Mom, I'm very happy to see you again, and I'm a little emotional. Li Shu wiped the corners of his eyes and revealed a bright smile. He followed his mother into the hall. The furnishings in the hall were the same as he remembered. In the middle is a wooden table filled with hearty meals. He was just an ordinary peasant family, and he didn't have so many taboos. My father was pouring wine alone, listening to the movement outside the door. He raised his head slightly, and when he saw that he was back, he couldn't help but laugh happily. You're back, Dad. The father nodded and said, come and eat. Li Shu sighed, his eyes crossed over the second elder in a complicated manner, and he didn't mean to sit down to eat. The emotions that were difficult to control gradually calmed down. The dead are gone, and the living are like us. To see the second elder again, he is already satisfied. He looked at the loving woman and asked, is this your test? The first Tenjin-sama. The woman's face was full of astonishment, and the scene around her instantly fell apart and turned into nothingness. The original location of the dining table is now a dark abyss with no end in sight. How do you know? The smile on the woman's face became gloomy, and there was a look of interest in the corner of her eye. He didn't expect the other party to reveal his identity in one word. Li Shu didn't explain. He looked at the other party calmly, and the aura on his body was rising. The combat effectiveness has soared from more than 100 to more than 1,000. The pupils of the first generation of heavenly gods shrank suddenly, and in this contraction, the opponent's chi was twice as strong. The drastic change in his pupils made his brows tremble, and in this tremble, the aura became several times stronger. With this breath alone, he couldn't move. I felt an electric current rushing through my heart, making his body numb, and I was shocked. How can there be such a strong man on earth? Bang! The first generation of heavenly gods could no longer withstand this pressure, and was shocked by Li Shu's aura that had been promoted to the pinnacle. Combat power. 8,521. Thank you for letting me see my parents again. I will do my best to deal with your test. I am bound to get the super divine water. The first generation of gods smiled bitterly. With your strength, what can I test you? With your own head. You've passed the test, but I have to warn you that the supernatural water is extremely toxic, and no one has been able to withstand it so far. After saying that, the figure of the first heavenly god disappeared, and a table with super divine water appeared in front of him. Li Shu was not surprised. He showed his strength, just to make the first generation of heavenly gods retreat. Otherwise, if you really want to fight, the first generation of gods will have to suffer a lot. Li Shu didn't waste time, and directly took away the super god water in the pot. Ding! Congratulations! Achievement mission, Will of the First Celestials completed. Quote. Get the reward. Super God Water Cup. Super God Water Cup. You can refill the Super God Water infinitely. +30 achievement. That. The first generation of gods was immediately anxious, and hurriedly said, Can the pot be left? Li Shu was stunned for a moment, a little puzzled. This looks like an ordinary pot. The first generation of heavenly gods saw the confusion in Li Shu's eyes and explained, That's not an ordinary kettle. The super divine water was born from this pot, and every once in a while, a drop of super divine water will be born in the pot. And only here can it give birth to super divine water, and if it is brought to the outside world, it is an ordinary kettle. What else did Li Shu think? It turned out to be this. I'm sorry. Li Shu immediately put down the kettle and called the cat fairy to take him back. He was going to let Jing Yuya, Goku, and the turtle Immortal all drink some super divine water, and then use the healing power of fairy beans to counter the toxicity of super divine water. But he suddenly thought of a serious question, can fairy beans detoxify? If you can't detoxify, the LSP of the turtle Immortal will definitely be poisoned. Cat Immortal, the toxicity of super divine water, can the fairy bean solve it? Li Shu hurriedly asked. The cat fairy shook his head and said, No. Quote, Ah. Li Shu was a little confused. It seems that only Wukong has this mouthful. But it's pretty good to use as a poison. After saying goodbye to the cat Immortal, Li Shu returned to the turtle Immortal house. I told everyone about the super divine water. After learning of the terrifying toxicity of the super divine water, both the turtle Immortal and Jing Yuya flinched. Wukong didn't say a word, and drank a glass in one sip. In the next second, Wukong looked like he was about to die, holding his neck with both hands, and his face was extremely painful. Li Shu hurriedly activated the pain manipulation. Ah, I only heard Wukong's terrible cry of pain, and his whole body convulsed up and down. I'll go, it's the other way around. The corners of Li Shu's mouth twitched, and he hurriedly increased it by 28 times and changed it to a reduction of 28 times. After more than 2 hours, Goku stopped his convulsions, and he managed to survive the toxicity of the super divine water. Combat power. 6,288. How did you get a few hundred points higher? Li Shu was a little puzzled, and after another month of cultivation, Wukong's combat power reached 5,663 points. As a result, he was resurrected by the super god water poison, and it was only increased by about 600 points. Soon Li Shu figured it out. With the 300 points of combat power of the first generation of gods, the divine object made by him could convert the potential of 600 points of combat power, which was already very good. It's a good choice to poison people. A month later, Dr. Grow finally had a facelift, skin graft and height enhancement. Now his skin looks as white as paper, the Q bullet can be broken, and he can no longer see the slightest wrinkle. The old man's face was completely renewed, and he became a handsome guy with a height of 185. It's just that if he wants to maintain this appearance, he has to have surgery every once in a while. Boomer reluctantly agreed to join him, and worked with him to study the Android Handbook to create a more perfect and powerful android. Ding! Congratulations! Hidden Achievement Mission. Dr. Grow's Desire, completed. Quote. Get reward. Dragon Ball Boosting Potion. +30 achievement. Dragon Ball Boosting Potion. After use, the cooldown time of the Dragon Ball is permanently reduced by 50%. As soon as the reward arrived, Li Shu evenly smeared the potion on the Dragon Balls. The cooling period of 1 year has been shortened to 6 months. It's been 3 months, and there are 3 months left before the Dragon Balls are ready to use. After every 6 months wishes, cool. Soon 3 months passed, and everyone was surprised to see the Dragon Balls that had regained their luster. It's only been half a year, right? Isn't it going to take 1 year? Li Shu didn't explain, and everyone was just puzzled for a while, and then they didn't bother about this matter anymore. This is good news for everyone. No matter what the reason, Yamcha and Klin were able to resurrect half a year early. Without too much delay, Li Shu directly summoned the divine dragon. Promised to resurrect the people who were killed by the androids. As you wish. Shenlong's scarlet eyes lit up slightly, and after the wish was granted, he returned to the Dragon Ball. Li Shu did the same, and once again swept away the scattered Dragon Balls. Save time on the next look. Once every 6 months, it's too wasteful not to use. Kling and Yamcha also sat up from the capsule freezer at this time, looking around blankly. The two of them soon saw a group of people standing on the sidelines, smiling on their faces. Yamcha knew about the Dragon Balls, and he was the first to react and asked, "Is it us who was resurrected with the Dragon Balls?" Quote. "That's right, you're welcome back." Li Shu smiled and nodded, looking at Yamcha's eyes full of heat. If memory serves, he only needs to defeat Yamcha one more time to obtain the skill burst. Doubling the combat power and doubling the power of the skill should bring you unexpected gains. After a brief reunion, Li Shu said to Yamcha and Klin, "Have you heard of the legend of the Super Earthlings?" Both of them shook their heads blankly. So, Li Shu told this legend again, and told that he had the ability to stimulate blood. Klin and Yamcha were immediately excited, and hurriedly asked Li Shu to give them inspiration. To be honest, Li Shu is also a little curious. Klin doesn't have a nose, is he an earthling? Yamcha comes first. Li Shu said again. After I awaken the hidden power in your bloodline, you have to challenge me once to test the effect. Yamcha did not hesitate at all, and agreed directly. He also wanted to know how big the gap between himself and Li Shu was. I saw Li Shu raise his hand and wave, and a bloodlight submerged into Yamcha's body. The whole process only lasted a few seconds before it ended, and Yamcha looked at Li Shu with some blankness. As if to say, "This is good. Did you just hear something breaking?" Li Shu asked. Yamcha thought for a few seconds, nodded and said, "I did hear it. This means that we have successfully awakened the bloodline of the Super Earthlings, and the broken voice is the shackles that imprison our potential. Over the next few days of practice, you will be able to clearly feel the changes in yourself." Yamcha nodded as if she didn't understand, and then challenged Li Shu. After practicing in Kalanta, he could feel that his strength had been greatly improved, at least several times. It is possible that he is still defeated by Li Shu, but it should be able to close the gap a little, he thinks. However, it turned out that his idea was wrong. Li Shujian simply punched. He didn't even see the movement clearly, and he lost his combat effectiveness. How is this gap widening? I've worked hard. Ding. Congratulations. Achievement quest. Assault Yamcha, completed. Quote. Get reward. Burst. +5 achievement. Explosion. In this state, the combat power is doubled, and the skill power is doubled. Li Shu smiled and helped Yamcha up, and said, "Don't be discouraged, you are now a Super Earthling, with unlimited potential, and you will be able to surpass me one day." Yamcha nodded with a wry smile, and there was no longer the heart to chase after Li Shu in her heart. Li Shu's strength left him in the dust, and he decided to change the target of chasing Goku to Goku. So, he challenged Goku again and was knocked down by a punch again. Yamcha was completely silent, and he looked at Boomer on the side with a sad face. Boomer smiled proudly. "Yamcha, I'm afraid you can't even beat me now." Quote. What? Yamcha wondered if she had misheard. Don't be kidding, Boomer. Boomer smiled and dropped a capsule on the ground. Bomb. With a bang, dinosaur number 2 made its debut. This is my dinosaur number 2, do you want to try it? Try it, just try it. Yamcha was a little unconvinced. He still didn't believe that he couldn't beat a robot that looked stupid. Tragedy struck again, without the slightest surprise. Yamcha lay on the ground, staring blankly at the clouds in the sky. He has only been dead for half a year, and everyone has changed so much that he feels dead for a century. Klin, who was on the side, was already dumbfounded. Don't be in a daze, Clint, it's your turn to give you a blood boost. Li Shu's voice brought Kling back to his senses and walked in front of him. The same blood light flew out, but Clint's reaction was completely different from Yamucha's. His changes were great. Not only was his body glowing purple, but even his skin was gradually turning purple. The most important thing is that Clint actually grew another pair of ears out. The changes are not over yet, with the passage of time. Where Clint's nose had grown, a purple squinting eye had grown. Everyone was stunned by the change in Clint, and the gaping mouth was bigger than the other. However, it hasn't stopped, it's still going on. Clint's shoulder blades were squirming in both places, as if something was about to emerge from them. It wasn't long before the wriggling thing came out of the shoulder blades. It turned out to be a pair of pink wings. But that's not the point. The point is, the pair of pink wings are only the size of a palm, which looks very funny. Clint, you're not human. Clint's astonishing changes not only stunned everyone, but even he himself. Anyone who suddenly has an extra eye will be blinded. What's more, this eye still grows in the middle of the face. And Clint not only has an extra eye, but also an extra pair of ears, and a pair of small pink wings on his shoulder blades. For the changes in himself, Clint can clearly feel it. Clint, it turns out that you are not from the earth either. No wonder you don't have a nose, it turns out that the place where the long nose is hidden is an eye. Quote, you're so small-eyed. The wings are also very small. The new ears are quite large. The crowd began to comment on Kling's new changes. There are many strange-looking creatures on Earth, including animal people, so Kling's change is not so unacceptable. Li Shu was amazed at the amazing changes in Kling, and kept recalling Dragon Ball more than 20 years ago. Thinking about it, I didn't think of a race similar to it. But come to think of it, in the original book, Kling has always been called the strongest Earthling, and until the end, he also lived as an Earthling. Even the daughter who was born later is also the genes of Earthlings, and she can't see the slightest alien. So, what kind of creature is this? Li Shu was a little curious and asked the system directly. System, Kling has the genes of the ancient creatures of the earth in his body, belongs to the branch of the human race, but is not an alien. This is an atavistic phenomenon, in ancient times, called the violet-eyed man. Quote, violet-eyed people, looking at Kling's new purple skin, and purple squinting eyes, don't say it, it's quite vivid. With the atavistic revival of the bloodline of the ancient creatures hidden in his body, Kling's combat power has changed, increasing by more than 10 times. Combat power, 731. Li Shu did some mental calculations, and his combat effectiveness was increased by about 16 times. Kling also felt his powerful power at this moment, jumping thousands of meters high, and the small pink meat wings actually had amazing power. With the fluttering of his little wings, Kling flew freely in the sky, extremely fast, like a purple lightning. So fast. Wukong was stunned by the speed that Kling showed at the moment, and this flight speed was no less than him. But Kling's breath is almost 10 times weaker than his. Li Shu naturally also discovered the abnormality of Kling's speed, and it seems that this is the talent brought by the ancient bloodline in Kling's body. Possesses a blazing fast flight speed. I really didn't expect that the small wings the size of a palm could dance with such a powerful force. Kling stopped flying and looked at everyone excitedly, his shoulders trembling with excitement. I feel like I'm 10 times stronger. Clint danced happily and kept telling his feelings. My hearing has also become much stronger, even at a height of thousands of meters, as long as I want, I can hear your heartbeat. Also, my vision has become wider, and I can see 180 degrees in front of me. Listening to Kling's story, Yamucha was very envious, but he didn't change at all. The others also looked around Clint in amazement. Li Shu asked, you don't want to keep it like this in the future, do you? Can you try it back to the way it was? Quote, yes. Clint immediately reacted, although he has become stronger now, he has also become ugly. After working hard for a long time, Kling still remained the same, which made his face suddenly unnatural, and even a little flustered. Everyone saw Kling's embarrassment, and Li Shu recalled how he felt when he transformed into a Super Saiyan and turned back. Immediately, Li Shu told Kling about his experience. Kling tried a few more times, but it still ended in failure, and he was really panicked now. It's not going to change and won't come back, will it? Kling looked at everyone in a panic. He wasn't married yet. If he needs to keep this way in the rest of his life, I am afraid that he will be doomed to be lonely in old age. How is it important to get married to become stronger? Clint's eyes for help looked at everyone, and everyone looked like they were thinking about it, helping Clint think of a way. Why don't you have plastic surgery and skin grafting? Boomer's eyes lit up, and he quickly thought of a way to call Dr. Grow over. Look, Clint, this guy used to be old and ugly, but look at the way he looks now, isn't he handsome? Dr. Grow's handsome appearance at the moment did make Kling a little jealous. That's what changed after his plastic surgery and skin grafting. And just succeeded, with a lot of experience. As for the extra organs, these ears are not in the way, and you can see the past, the squinting eyes here on the nose, you can bring a mask. No, you can close this eye in the middle of your face, and then tattoo you around it and disguise it as a nose. How? Simply the perfect solution. Quote, the more Boomer spoke, the brighter his eyes became, and the thoughts of a genius overflowed into words. Kling was stunned, and his mind was already imagining what he would look like after doing this, and he quickly shuddered. I think Boomer is a good proposal. The turtle Immortal agreed. Yamcha also agreed. When Kling's gaze turned to Goku, Goku said, let Boomer transform you into an android, right? That would be cool. Glancing at Dinosaur 2 standing next to Boomer, his scorched skin was not as good as he was now. Kling hurriedly shook his head and denied Wukong's proposal, and finally looked at Li Shu, and said worriedly, you can stimulate my bloodline power, there should be a way for me to change back, right? If you really can't do it, can you take back my bloodline power? I'd rather be weaker than ugly. Li Shu smiled and said, if your current appearance belongs to transformation, I can help you transform back. Quote, I'll give it a try. Li Shu's answer made Kling overjoyed, and sure enough, brother Li Shu was reliable. Inverter field. Li Shu's heart moved, and an invisible energy field instantly spread out like ripples to the surroundings. Kling's body changed instantly. The squinting eye in the middle of the face faded away, leaving only a purple vertical line the size of a nose. The extra pair of ears and wings also slowly submerged into the body. The purple skin is also fading, gradually changing back to its original appearance. It's a long time, but in fact, the whole process of change is only about 2 seconds. Kling was overjoyed, and before he could rejoice, he felt the world spinning, and his body seemed to be hollowed out, and his whole body was weak. His legs went limp, and he fell behind him. Chapter 91. Kling. Everyone was shocked, especially Goku and the turtle Immortal, who have mastered the sense of chi. They discovered that Kling's breath was rapidly weakening. Li Shu reacted the fastest, and with a flick of his fingers, a fairy bean flew into Kling's mouth. Although he was also a little surprised, he had experience, and transformation was a very physically demanding thing. Some powerful transformations can even consume lifespan. Eating it can help you recover your strength. Li Shu's voice made Kling, whose consciousness was gradually blurred, not have the slightest hesitation, and quickly swallowed the fairy beans in his mouth into his abdomen. With the exertion of the fairy bean effect, Clinton's body that felt hollowed out was recovering at an alarming speed. In an instant, he felt that his body was full of strength. Kling is no stranger to Shondo. Li Shu gave him one before, and it is still on him. At first, he was still skeptical of the effect of fairy beans, but now after experiencing it firsthand, he was completely impressed by this powerful recovery ability. You really belong to a transformation form, but you can't completely control this power, or with your current strength, you can't withstand this powerful force, so it will lead to the emptiness of the body and the lack of physical strength after the transformation. Combined with the situation just now, Li Shu gave his own conclusion. You can keep these fairy beans on your body, you will have experience when you transform next time, and prepare the fairy beans in advance. Li Shu grabbed a handful of fairy beans and handed them to Kling. Kling looked grateful and moved to tears. Li Shu not only helped him stimulate the power in his blood, but also helped him change back to his original form and save his future marriage. He even saved his life just now, and if it weren't for that immortal bean, he would have really died of exhaustion just now. Now he has given him a lot of such precious immortal beans, how can this meticulous care not move him? He swore that Li Shu would be his own big brother in the future. Clin looked at Li Shu like this, choked up several times, and couldn't say a word of emotion. Everyone is friends, don't look like this. Li Shu smiled, soothing Clin's emotions. Next, Li Shu introduced Jing Yuya to Clin and Yamucha. When they learned that such a beautiful and cute girl turned out to be Li Shu's apprentice, both of them were shocked. HMPH. Suddenly, Boomer snorted coldly and left with his dinosaur too. Xiao Luo, what are you still standing there for? Don't hurry up and fight down, the research progress of Dinosaur 4 can no longer be delayed. Boomer's angry voice made Yamucha's dull gaze quickly take back from Jing Yuya, and looked at Boomer's distant back helplessly. Opening his mouth, he wanted to explain something, but finally sighed and said nothing. Because, Jing Yuya is really better looking than Boomer, and her body is better. Moreover, after 6 months of martial arts practice, Jing Yuya's temperament at this time has also undergone tremendous changes. The tall posture, proud peak, delicate and sassy short hair, and tight and close-fitting training clothes all make people's eyes shine and they can't move their eyes. He did make mistakes that men would make, and Yamucha really couldn't explain it without a face. Thank you for resurrecting us, how much trouble, Li Shu, can you send us back? At this moment, Bra's voice came. Only then did Li Shu react, and he forgot about the father and son. Stay, have dinner and go back. Li Shu scratched his head embarrassedly. After dinner, Li Shu gave Bra a helicopter, and the father and son were grateful again and returned to Kalanta. With the resurrection of Clin and Yamucha, the following days became even more lively. Yamucha and Clin joined the practice of the Turtle Immortals and Jingyuya. Having awakened the hidden power in their bloodlines, their strength is increasing rapidly. I am working hard and preparing for the 22nd Tianxia First Martial Arts Conference 2 years later. Ordinary cultivation has lost its effect for Li Shu and Wukong. With the help of Sendo, both Li Shu and Goku fight each other, including his replicant artificial human. With the characteristics of the Saiyan bloodline, the strength of the two is also improving rapidly. 2.5 years later, the day before the 22nd Tianxia First Martial Arts Conference. Li Shu Combat Strength, 25,999. Wukong Combat Effectiveness, 21,999. Replicant Artificial Man Combat Strength, 16,999. Closing square bracket. It seems to have encountered a bottleneck again. No matter how you brush passively, it is useless. Li Shu punched through Goku's chest, and Goku skillfully swallowed a fairy bean, and his injuries instantly recovered as before. After being reborn from death, Goku's combat effectiveness remained at 21,999, without the slightest improvement. Moreover, he also found that their combat effectiveness bottlenecks were not the same. This may be the reason for the difference in bloodline. He is the bloodline of Earth Emperor Saya, so the upper limit of combat power at this stage is higher than that of Goku. Goku is just an ordinary Saiyan bloodline, and at this stage of potential development, 21,999 combat power is already his limit. The replicator artificial human is only a genetically modified product. Although it has the characteristics of an immortal body, it also has an obvious weakness, chips. After this period of research by Boomer, Li Shu also has an understanding of artificial humans. The upper limit of the potential of artificial humans has been decided from the moment they are made. That is to say, 16,999 combat effectiveness is already the limit of this replicator, and it can no longer be improved. Unless he is remodeled and the upper limit is raised. But it is no longer necessary, and in the past 2.5 years, with the cooperation of Boomer and Dr. Grow, more powerful artificial humans have been developed. Now that the combat effectiveness has reached the bottleneck again, if you want to break through this bottleneck and enter the next potential stage, the role of the same level of combat is no longer great. The current cultivation methods could not stimulate the hidden potential in their bodies. Li Shu is not helpless against the current bottleneck, although at this stage, he can no longer meet opponents stronger than them. But you can start with the practice method. If memory serves, Boomer's father, Dr. Brives, developed the gravity chamber. As for when it was researched, Li Shu does not remember, but it does not matter. Boomer, my practice with Goku has encountered a bottleneck and needs your help. Over a delightful dinner, Li Shu informed Boomer of the idea of the gravity chamber. Your father seems to have studied this. Don't worry, it's wrapped around me. Boomer readily agreed. Since coming into contact with the Artificial Man Handbook, Boomer seems to have found the ideal and purpose of life. Immersed in the research of artificial humans, and developed several civilian artificial human products, so that their Universal Glue Company made another big profit. Papaya Island, the 22nd First Martial Arts Conference of the World, venue. Li Shu and his party completed the registration for the martial arts conference, and the Turtle Immortals still disguised themselves as Cheng Long, reporting as Cheng Long's name. The martial arts convention will hold qualifiers tomorrow. Everyone walked towards the hotel with a smile. They had been looking forward to the arrival of the martial arts conference to test the results of their practice. Especially Clin. After he awakened his bloodline, his potential was also greatly improved, and his strength increased by leaps and bounds. In the following 2.5 years of cultivation, with the help of Li Shu, he had mastered the violet transformation. Goku, I'm sure to surprise you. Clin looked at Goku's side face with a confidence on his face that he had never felt before. As for Li Shu, Clin never thought that he would be a big brother opponent. Especially the last Kun Quan left a great psychological shadow on him, and whenever he recalled this in a midnight dream, he would wake up from the dream and check his socks. He felt that in this martial arts conference, he should be able to keep 3 into 2. As for the Turtle Immortals, Clin is no longer in the eyes. There is no disrespect, but the Turtle Immortals are old and can't compare to their young people. Yamcha walked through the crowd, with the same confident smile on her face. He was very grateful to Li Shu for awakening his super earthling bloodline, and his strength had also been greatly improved. Glancing at Clin, who was giggling, Yamcha guessed what Clin was thinking. He admitted that Clin's bloodline talent was very strong, and he was able to increase his combat power 16 times through transformation. But in these 2.5 years of practice, he also mastered a transformation ability. This is his killer skill, which has never been revealed in front of people. He wanted to surprise everyone at this martial arts conference. Especially Li Shu. Although I can't beat you, I also want to surprise you. As for the Turtle Immortals, Yamcha did not pay too much attention to it. The Turtle Immortal felt the gazes of Yamcha and Clin, and a smile could not help but appear on his face. These two little guys don't seem to put me as an old guy in their eyes. If you think I'm old, then you'll regret it and pay for it. Jing. Yuya was a little nervous. This was her first time participating in the world's first martial arts conference. Her gaze would always fall on Li Shu from time to time, hoping to get some encouragement. Li Shu naturally felt Jing Yuya's gaze and her nervous mood. A female martial artist who has just practiced for 3 years participates in this national martial arts competition for the first time, and it is inevitable that she will feel a little nervous in her heart. Everyone will have a first time and then slowly grow up. If he remembered correctly, when Clin participated in the world's first martial arts conference for the first time, he was frightened by his opponent and did not dare to move, and he was timid before fighting. It was still with Goku's encouragement that Fang bravely launched an attack. Li Shu said to Jing Yuya, "You are very talented in martial arts, and when the preliminary round starts tomorrow, after a few battles, you will not feel nervous." "That's right, I was about the same as you when I first participated." Clin also encouraged from the sidelines, "But you will soon find out that those people are not our opponents at all." Yamcha said, "If I am not mistaken, this martial arts conference, the real opponents are a few of us. Hopefully tomorrow's preliminaries, we can separate and not meet too early." "Yes, that's a shame." Both of them glanced at Li Shu with palpitations, secretly praying that they would not meet in the qualifiers, otherwise they would not even be able to enter the top 8. Li Shu said, "I'm afraid it's inevitable. We have 5 people to participate, and there will inevitably be 2 people who will meet in the qualifiers." Everyone was stunned. "Think carefully." "Yes." Immediately, everyone subconsciously looked at Li Shu, except for Wukong. Obviously, the last opponent they want to encounter is Li Shu. Li Shu was also a little worried at the moment. She was a little worried that Jing Yuya would not win the 3rd place. In the past 2.5 years, he has insisted on using special eye drops every year, and the level of fighting eye has been raised to LV7. The level 7 battle eye did not add new abilities, but strengthened the original abilities. For example, combat effectiveness, he can already see the last 7 decimal places, as well as the opponent's hidden combat power. Vision has also been greatly strengthened, the world in the eyes has become clearer, and even the movement of air can be seen. As for the ability to see, so far he has not found himself unable to see through anything within a radius of 1 kilometer, as long as he wishes, will be nowhere to hide. For example, in the public toilet next to it, there is a couple studying the landlord inside. The woman feels that the other party's skills are too shallow, and requires the man's skills to be profound, otherwise she will be very boring. The man's face was depressed, the cards in his hand were too small to study the esoteric style of play. Li Shu shook his head, then withdrew his gaze, looking at the combat power above the turtle immortal's head, and his mood was a little apprehensive. Combat power. 109,999.9999999. The turtle immortal's surface combat power at the moment is only revealed by 100, but his true combat power is infinitely close to 10,000. In 3 years, the combat effectiveness has increased from more than 100 to infinitely close to 10,000, which can be said to be a huge improvement. On the other hand, Jing Yuya, who was advancing by leaps and bounds at the beginning, his combat effectiveness at this moment is only equal to that of the turtle immortals. Combat effectiveness. 59,999.9999999. Obviously, the two have also encountered a bottleneck period. For them, their daily practice has not improved much. Although Jing Yuya is equal to the turtle immortal in terms of combat effectiveness, in normal training, she can also press the turtle immortal to fight. But Li Shu knew that the turtle immortals really had to be serious, whether in terms of skill or experience, they were not comparable to Jing Yuya, who had only practiced for 3 years. Moreover, the turtle immortal also has a muscle form, and the combat power can have a lot of increase. However, thinking of Jing Yuya's transformed form and skyrocketing combat effectiveness, Li Shu was slightly relieved. Judging from the multiples of the increase in combat effectiveness, Jing Yuya's transformation form is more powerful. Looking at the 3 super earthlings beside him, Li Shu couldn't help but show a smile. All 3 of them have mastered the transformation ability of super earthlings, but the effects are different. The only thing that is the same is that they all choose to hide it. As everyone knows, when they secretly transformed, their suddenly skyrocketing combat power could not escape Li Shu's chi sense induction at all. At this moment, 3 people in green robes walked towards them, and all 3 had the word, crane, embroidered on their chests. Blocked the way of their group. Who did I think it was? Isn't this a turtle immortal? The old guy among the 3, pinching his octagonal beard, laughed sarcastically. Listening to the strange voice of Yin and Yang, Li Shu and the others looked at the strange trio in front of them with unkind eyes. A mean old guy, a small bald head that looks like a paper man boy, and a 3-eyed weirdo. What a strange combination. The person who came was the nemesis of the turtle immortals, the crane immortals and his party. The one next to it is tall and short, it is Tianjin rice and dumplings. Tianjin rice combat strength, 180 dumplings combat strength, 120 crane immortal combat strength, 120. Looking at the combat effectiveness of the 3, the corners of Li Shu's mouth involuntarily raised slightly, and he looked at the appearance of the crane immortal dying with interest. Yo, isn't this a crane immortal? You old guy isn't dead yet. Not to be outdone, the turtle immortal countered. The eyes under the sunglasses were full of disdain and mockery. With the current strength of the turtle immortals, it is easy to see that the level of the crane immortals is dozens of times different from themselves. The huge gap in strength made the turtle immortals not pay too much attention to the grudges of the past. The crane immortal sneered, I heard that your apprentice made a splash at last year's first martial arts conference under heaven. Did you take the championship, runner-up and 3rd place? Oh, you know, it's good that this year will be the same. The turtle immortal was proud, and his hunched waist was slightly straightened. The crane immortal sneered disapprovingly. Look at what you are proud of, this can only mean that the world's first martial arts conference has declined, and the martial artists who come to participate are all some garbage. Quote. This year's number 1 martial arts conference in the world, it is very necessary for us Hexian Lu to participate in it. Let everyone see what is the real martial arts. Instead of watching a group of jumping beam clowns, spending fists and embroidering legs in the ring. Therefore, my apprentice will also participate in this martial arts conference. If you are afraid, you should hurry up and run away with your tail between your legs, so as not to lose face and make the big guys laugh. The champion must be my apprentices." After speaking, the crane immortal tilted his head and gestured to the left and right, indicating that the two people standing on his left and right were his apprentices. Tianjin rice and dumplings are also very cooperative, and they have released their powerful aura and amazing murderous aura. After feeling that breath, the turtle immortals and the others were silent, and they looked at the three crane immortals strangely. "The atmosphere is somewhat subtle. Ha, is it? That's so exciting, ha. The turtle immortal took the lead in breaking the silence, laughing, and the huge gap in strength made him completely unconcerned about the other party's provocation. "On the contrary, I think it is ridiculous." Yamcha also laughed and said, "As Surushanliu. It's so strong, don't you say, Klin?" Klin smiled and said, "Yes, and this murderous aura, which makes me worry about whether they will kill us." Ha. Jing Yuya muttered in a low voice, "They are so weak, why are they still so arrogant?" In the face of Jing Yuya's question, Li Shu was also a little speechless. "All of you are hiding your strength, revealing your combat strength, and the highest is Yamcha 110. Klin is 80. Goku is the most outrageous, direct combat power 5. The reaction of the turtle immortal and his group surprised the crane immortals, Tianjin rice and dumplings. Shouldn't they gnash their teeth? Why do they all seem so relaxed and casual? Even dismissive. Abominable. The crane immortal was a little annoyed, and then said, "Let's go. When the time comes, make them look good in the ring." After saying that, he was about to leave, but Li Shu spoke at this time. "Your brother is dead." The crane immortal was stunned, and suddenly turned to look at Li Shu. He really couldn't contact Taobai for a few years. Actually dead. He was incredulous. "What nonsense are you talking about? My brother is the #1 killer in the world, how can he die?" Although the crane immortal does not want to believe it, it is a fact that his brother has disappeared. Now he accidentally got the news of nothing, although it may be fake, but he still listened to it. "Your brother is called Taobai Bai. He came to kill me, and then I beat him to death," Li Shu said calmly. The crane immortals, Tianjin rice and dumplings were all shocked and looked at Li Shu incredulously. Taobai's strength, but they knew it, and they actually died in the hands of this person in front of them. Just blow it, how can my brother die in the hands of your turtle fairy Flo? As far as you three-legged cat kung fu, even if you go together, you are not my brother's opponent. The crane immortals didn't want to believe this fact until Li Shushi exhibited the cave wave and scattered a white cloud in the sky. Dongdongbo. At this moment, they finally believed the fact that Taobai was really dead. And he died at the hands of the turtle immortal Ryuran. It was a great shock to them. "Abominable. You actually killed my brother. I must make you pay in blood." The crane immortal was angry and looked at Li Shu viciously, but he did not make a rash move. Because he couldn't beat his brother. And the other party can kill his younger brother, which shows that Li Shu's strength is above him. Tianjin rice. The crane immortal shouted angrily, "Kill this kid." Tianjin fan suddenly looked at the crane immortals in amazement. "If we kill them here, we will be disqualified from the competition." Quote, "He killed Taobai, your junior uncle. Don't forget, your martial arts enlightenment was taught to you for nothing. When is it, and you still have a mind game?" The crane immortals are a little angry and corrupted. If he hadn't been able to fight it himself, he would have done it a long time ago. However, Tianjin fan was still unmoved, but said, "I want to prove it to everyone in the ring. Surushan stream is the strongest. Sooner or later we will encounter them in the ring, they can't run away. At that time, I will teach them a hard lesson in front of all the audience, break their hands and feet. Then wait until the game is over and kill them." Quote, "Oh, sounds pretty good." The crane immortal also calmed down, and then looked at Li Shu and the others gloomily, "Then let you live for a while longer." Li Shu and the others looked at each other and immediately laughed. "It's a laugh at me. Did they come over specifically to tell jokes? Maybe. This old guy of the crane immortal has always been a jumping beam clown," the turtle immortal said with a smile. The crane immortal really couldn't stay any longer, and snorted coldly, "Let's go." Ding. Congratulations. Trigger the achievement mission. Correct evil. Mission description. Make Tianjin rice and dumplings willingly get rid of Hexian flow. Mission reward. Bottleneck potion. Bottleneck potion, break through the potential bottleneck period of the current stage. The next day, the martial arts conference qualifiers opened. Li Shu and his party walked into the venue and began the drawing of lots. At the same time, the check-in task after a 3-year absence was completed. The task reward warm reminder that made Li Shu puzzled sounded in his mind. Ding! The 22nd Martial Arts Conference site registration completed. Quote. Get rewarded. Tips once. System. Warm reminder, another traverser has arrived, he has a villain system, and will fight you at every turn. Ding. Trigger confrontation mode. Ding. Get the mission. Protect the protagonist group. Mission description. Keep the members of the protagonist group safe, improve their strength as much as possible, and prevent them from being killed by the villain crosser. Reward description. Every time you win a confrontation, you will be rewarded handsomely. Current protagonist group members. Sun Wukong, Klin, Yamcha, Turtle Immortal, Boomer, Jing Yuya. Victory description. Every defeat of the villain crosser's action pointer to the protagonist group is considered your victory. Failure description. The success of every action of the villain crosser pointing to the action of the protagonist group is considered your failure. Punishment description. If the members of the protagonist group are destroyed, you will be wiped out by the main system. Mission time limit. After the villain traverser dies completely, the confrontation mode ends. After hearing the content of the warm reminder and the explanation of the confrontation mode, Li Shu was shocked, and his expression became very exciting. Who is this crosser? Li Shu did not hesitate and quickly asked the system. Now that the enemy is secret, he will be very passive if he does not understand who the other party is. However, the system's sentence did not know, which made Li Shu very stunned. The system explained. Everyone is a systematic person, I can't get each other's information, and likewise, the other party can't get your information. Can this be the same? His mission is to kill the members of the protagonist group, and he doesn't need to know who I am at all. System. Warm reminder, this reward has given you a head start, and you can rest assured that he doesn't know of your existence now. In his perception, he is the only crosser. Quote. Oh, hearing the system say this, Li Shu suddenly felt a lot more relaxed, and asked again, is he from the same place as me? Of course, the system replied without thinking. In all parallel universes, only the Earth creatures in the space-time where you are have the ability to travel. Quote. From the same place. That means that the other party has a great probability and has seen Dragon Ball. In case the other party remembers more about the plot of Dragon Ball and some details than he remembers, then he will be very passive. Li Shu couldn't help but feel a sense of crisis. The final punishment of this task was the obliteration of the main system. What does the main system mean? The system explains. I and the villain system are subsystems, and the main system is above us and has the highest authority. If the mission fails, I will be wiped out along with you, and the immortal body is useless. Li Shu's heart is very heavy, and the good days are coming to an end. The priority now is to find out who the other party really is. Is it the same as him, the two of them crossed over together, or the soul pierced the original characters? I don't know if the villain traverser will also participate in this martial arts conference. This is undoubtedly a good opportunity to destroy the members of the protagonist group. Jing Yuya. Li Shu suddenly thought of a key question, that is, characters who should not have appeared among the members of the protagonist group. This would be a huge flaw. Does the villain system know who the protagonist group members are? System. Yes. It seems that it won't be long before the villain traverser will know that the plot has changed, and it may be associated with other traversers in the Dragon Ball world. Li Shu has some regrets. If only the villain crosser did not know the specific members of the protagonist group. Then he can completely hide Jing Yuya and be invincible. Unfortunately, with the existence of the main system, there could not be such an obvious vulnerability. Brother Li Shu, what's wrong with you? It looks a little distracted. Klin, who had just finished drawing lots, noticed that something was wrong with Li Shu. Li Shu's frown gradually loosened, and said, it's nothing, it's just a bad premonition. I always feel that something bad will happen at the martial arts conference. I hope it's my delusion. Everyone was a little confused by Li Shu's serious appearance. This year's budget competition was changed and divided into 8 divisions, each of which took first place to enter the quarterfinals, so that we could all stagger them. After reading the distribution map of the competition area, Yamauchi told everyone the good news. Everyone cheered, none of them wanted to run into their own people in the qualifiers. Li Shu smiled and said, "Then when the next draw is drawn, I will tell you which one to draw through spiritual communication." Soon. With the help of Li Shu's perspective, everyone was perfectly staggered. The skill of spiritual communication was taught to them by the turtle immortals in his practice in the past 2.5 years, and everyone knew it. An episode occurs during which Dumpling is using his superpowers to change the outcome of their draw. After Li Shu found out, he directly used telepathic communication to launch a lion roar on the dumpling, which frightened the dumpling and fainted on the spot. At that time, Tianjin Fan looked around in shock, completely unaware of what happened to the dumplings, and went out anxiously holding the fainted dumplings. Not long after, Tianjin Rice returned to the arena with dumplings in hand. After understanding, Tianjin Fan had already guessed that it was the person who had just made a move on the dumplings. This result surprised them, and they had a little intuitive feeling about the strength of the turtle immortal flow, and they would be a fierce enemy. "Dumpling, do you know who moved the hand?" Tianjin Rice also mastered the ability to communicate with the heart, and stood in the distance with Dumpling, and the 3 eyes kept looking at the group of Guixianliu. "I don't know, it's terrible. Are we really their opponents?" Dumpling shook his head, looking afraid. His heart had been shaken, and he didn't have the confidence he had when he came. Tianjin Rice's face became gloomy, and his original confidence was also a little shaken. This kind of intimidation from the heart made him feel strange. On the other side, Li Shu was talking to everyone bitterly. "Don't take it lightly. I always have a bad premonition. We may encounter powerful enemies, not just us who control our breath to hide our strength. This is 10 fairy beans, you all put them away, put one in your mouth in advance before each game, and swallow it immediately if an accident occurs. I'm suddenly in a bit of a hurry, I'm going to Kalanta, I'll be back in time." Li Shu drew a lot for himself and was the last to play. At his current speed, that's enough for 3 round trips. Immortal beans, such a heaven-defying prop, he must monopolize before the villain Traverser reacts. "Corinta, it's too late to explain, I have to take all the immortal beans." The cat immortal looked at Li Shu with a confused expression, and saw Li Shu wave his big hand, and all the immortal beans disappeared. Before the cat immortal could react, Li Shu flew away with a whoosh. Cat immortal. The cat fairy licked his paws, grabbed the small dried fish next to him, and continued to eat. "I don't know why, he has gained a lot of weight in recent years. It seems that I have to exercise and lose weight." Thinking of this, the cat immortal played with a woolen ball in one hand. Li Shu returned to the venue of the world's first martial arts conference again. In the face of everyone's inquiries, he casually found an excuse and fooled the past, and everyone did not care. Thinking that the fairy beans were running out, Li Shu went to buy goods. After a while, it was Li Shu's turn to play. The opponent was a strong man more than 2 meters tall, who looked fierce and vicious. Combat effectiveness, 10. Li Shu did not take it lightly. Now that the villain Traverser has not yet appeared, he has reason to suspect anyone. Especially the players who came to participate in the world's first martial arts conference are most likely disguised by the villain Traverser. After a short trial, after discovering that the other party was indeed a scumbag, Li Shu easily defeated the opponent. "Have you ever met a strong opponent?" Li Shu looked at the others and asked. Everyone shook their heads. They all easily defeated their opponents, without the slightest pressure. Li Shu couldn't help frowning and carefully looked at all the contestants. With his current level 7 battle eye, even if the other party hides his strength, he will find out. When he finished scanning the circle, he did not find any suspicious targets. The highest combat effectiveness is Tianjin Rice. "Didn't you come to participate? Will you be too nervous?" Li Shu pondered for a moment, feeling that it was very likely that he had made a fuss. The villain crosser has just crossed over, and it is impossible to make much movement. Maybe the other party may not have seen Dragon Ball, and they are still in a state of confusion. Thinking of his experience when he just crossed over, Li Shu felt that this was very likely. Suddenly coming to an unfamiliar environment, more or less takes a certain amount of time to get used to and get used to. Of course, it is not ruled out that the other party has stronger concealment means and can avoid the eye of battle. In every budget game that follows, Li Shu must take it seriously, first test it, and then make a move to defeat the enemy. Under his strong request, Goku and the others were also very serious, treating each opponent as the strongest opponent. From a distance, there had been a Tianjin Rice on Li Shu's side, watching their such cautious fighting methods, and the confidence that was shaken in his heart stabilized again. It seems that I have thought too much, and dealing with these unruly martial artists is like a great enemy. Tianjin Fan couldn't help but feel a little contempt in his heart. Soon the qualifiers were over, and Li Shu and the others successfully entered the quarterfinals. Seeing that the final 8 places were all his own except for Tianjin Rice and Dumplings, Li Shu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. As for the question of whether Dumplings and Tianjin Rice would be villain crossers, Li Shu just thought for a while and ruled out this possibility. It seems that I really thought about it too much, and the other party did not come to participate in the world's first martial arts conference. But it is not ruled out that this guy is hiding in the audience and looking for another opportunity to sneak attack. If you are not afraid of thieves, you are afraid of thieves. Li Shu deeply felt the feeling of this sentence at this moment. He must always be on the lookout and be vigilant. Competitors can take a break, replenish their strength, and start the final of the top 8 in 30 minutes. With the host's shout, Li Shu and the others left the competition area and came to the rest area. Master, you seem to be a little nervous, and you seem to be very worried. After Jing Yuya warmed up after the qualifiers, she was no longer so nervous, and she looked at Li Shu with some concern. Klin, Yamucha, and Wukong also looked at Li Shu suspiciously. They didn't quite understand Li Shu's reaction at the moment. Li Shu looks like today like nothing they have ever seen. In their impression, Li Shu had always looked like a light and breezy, and they had never seen him so cautious. As if something big was going to happen. Li Shu smiled bitterly, not knowing how to explain it to Wukong. Did you tell them that there was a hanger like him who was watching them from the shadows? Li Shu, did you find something? The turtle Immortal changed his previous laughter, and with his understanding of Li Shu, this kid would never be untargeted. Something must have happened that they didn't know about. Li Shu decided to compile a white lie to raise their vigilance and avoid accidents that left him too late to react. Everything about the enemy is unknown, anything can happen. Quote, I'm not sure, but I always feel like something is staring at us, and when I look over, there's nothing, he said. I felt a faint murderous aura in the air, enveloping us. Li Shu's words carried a lot of weight in everyone's hearts, and no one dared to underestimate his intuition. Everyone's expressions became solemn. You know, Li Shu is the strongest among them, especially in the induction of Qi sense, and it is even stronger than them. The most intuitive feeling is that unless they look with their eyes, they can't detect Li Shu's existence at all. And even if Li Shu closed his eyes, he could still find their location accurately. Even their every move. I believe in Li Shu's intuition, even he can't detect the existence, we really have to be careful. Li Shu smiled, making himself look less serious, and said, maybe I'm thinking too much, just keep a little vigilant. Quote. The next topic turned to everyone's performance in the qualifiers. The atmosphere has also become lighter. A day ago, 3,000 kilometers away from Papaya Island, a spaceship was flying over a sea area. Inside the cabin, the trio of Pirif, waiting cautiously, had a skeleton seat in front of them, on which sat a green-skinned freak. The green-skinned weirda's clothes were embroidered with a large magic character. Lord Vic Great Devil, please give me 2 more days, I will definitely be able to repair the Dragon Ball radar. Pirif explained, covered in sweat. Dragon Ball radar. Vic the Great Devil, am I crossing over to become the Great Demon of Bike? The Vic Great Devil, who was sitting on the skeleton seat, looked confused. He obviously slept at home, why did he suddenly become the Great Demon King of Bike? I must not have woken up yet. So, the Vic Great Demon closed his eyes again. The Great Demon of Vic finally recognized the facts. He struggled to recall the plot about Dragon Ball. However, his tragic discovery that he had forgotten about the anime decades ago. Just remember a few classic characters, and the general plot. After digesting the introduction of the system and his own tasks, he fell into deep thought. Who is Shizuoa? Is Yua Gogami's sister? Vic, the great demon, was confused, racking his brains to recall the plot, but he had no impression at all. He didn't remember such a female character in the protagonist group. Could it be that the one who sneezes and changes his hair? What is the name of Monkey King's wife? I already knew that I would cross. I should have watched the Dragon Ball first. Vic the Great Demon has a bit of a headache. But one thing he still remembers is that he is invincible at this stage. Sun Wukong is not his opponent, then the other members of the protagonist group are even less his opponents. I remember there was a bean that could be revived with blood as long as it didn't die. Where did you get this thing? The Great Demon King of Vic wants to get this bean in hand, so that he can have a little more certainty and destroy the protagonist in one go. Don't give Sun Wukong any chance to turn over. It seems to be given by a cat. The Vic Great Demon was so irritable that he almost forgot about it. But fortunately, the system rewarded him with an immortal body. Looking at the rice cooker next to him, the magic seal wave was his only weak point. And he also received Saiyan blood. As long as he gets that magical bean, with his immortal body and Saiyan bloodline, he can brush passive infinitely, and his combat effectiveness will increase rapidly. In addition, it can also earn rewards by helping other villains. He suddenly felt that even if he didn't remember the plot, it wouldn't affect him to complete the task. Because he is now invincible. The main goal at this stage is not to collect Dragon Balls, but to directly kill the Monkey King who has not yet grown up, and the Turtle Immortal who has mastered the magic seal wave. He doesn't quite remember how Sun Wukong later killed him in the original book. Thinking of this, the Vic Great Demon King began to examine the little dwarf in front of him. Pull the skin, do you know Sun Wukong? Pirav's body trembled and said, Great King, my name is Pilaf, of course I know that fool Sun Wukong. Quote. Good. There is no hurry about the Dragon Ball radar. You now have two missions. The first is to find the whereabouts of Son Goku, and the other is to find a kind of bean. Quote. Beans. Pirav was a little puzzled and asked, King, what kind of bean is it? The Great Demon King Vic thought for a while and said, I ate beans that can restore physical strength. This bean seems to be on a white cat. That cat lives in a high tower. I only remember so much. Pirav looked confused. How could he find this? But he still agreed hard. And then, the Vic Great Demon King spat out 2 more eggs from his mouth, hatching 2 demon warriors. One is named Eggplant. One is named Cucumber. Eggplant, you go find an old man named Turtle Immortal, and then kill him. Cucumber, you and pull the skin to act separately. You first find that magic bean. If you meet the Monkey King, kill it. Quote. The plot of the Demon Warrior, he is still very impressed. In the first encounter with Sun Wukong, he was almost killed by the Demon Warrior. If it were not for the negligence of the Demon Warrior, Sun Wukong might have died. After arranging the task, the Vic Great Demon King began to familiarize himself with his own power. After getting acquainted with the body, he went out himself. Time goes back to the present. The scene of the world's first martial arts conference. At the end of the 30-minute break, the 8 players arrived in the waiting area to draw lots to determine who and in what order. In the quarterfinals draw, Li Shu did not use the ability of perspective to interfere with the results of others. Just staggered himself and Jingyuya. He must ensure that Shizuya can reach the semifinals. After Yamcha saw the results of his draw, he breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it was not Li Shu, he was confident of defeating his opponent, even Goku. No, my opponent is Goku. Klin smiled bitterly after seeing the results of his draw, looking a little frustrated. In the quarterfinals, the last opponents he wanted to meet were Li Shu and Wukong. This will put a lot of pressure on him to show his whole cards ahead of time. With the same smile on his face, Goku said, Klin, let's get serious about fighting. I won't lose to you, Goku. Klin also wants to open. As long as he continues to walk, whether it is Wukong or Li Shu, it is unavoidable for him, and he can't let himself be timid before fighting. The Turtle Immortal looked at the relieved Yamcha on the side, and couldn't help but say, You seem to be very confident to defeat me. Yamcha smiled awkwardly. A little, only a little, and I will ask Teacher Wushin's subordinates to show mercy later. Quote. Ha. The Turtle Immortal smiled and said, I'm an old bone, I don't dare to be careless in the face of your group of young people, I will definitely go all out. That's great, we're sure to give everyone a great fight. Li Shu, who looked at this scene, was very emotional in his heart. To be honest, even he was not sure that he would defeat them under normal circumstances. After the bloodline awakened, the improvement of their strength could be said to have advanced by leaps and bounds. Master, if I enter the top 3, will there be any rewards? Jing Yuya suddenly stood in front of Li Shu, her eyes full of strange emotions, looking at him expectantly. Li Shu was surprised. Didn't you say okay? You were giving me a worship ceremony, and this is also my test of your cultivation results in the past 3 years. Quote. Can't there be an extra reward? Jing Yuya pouted, a hint of cunning flashed in her eyes, and her big eyes blinked. Well, what reward do you say you want? Li Shu compromised. The corners of Jing Yuya's mouth gradually rose, her smiling eyes narrowed, and said, I want you to take me to eat roast bird again. Nobi Bear's yakiniku shop. Quote. That's it. Li Shu didn't understand a little. What kind of reward is this? Yes, it's that simple, master, you won't not agree, right? Jing Yuya's eyes widened, staring at Li Shu's eyes without blinking. Ha, Li Shu said disapprovingly. Then it is decided. After getting Li Shu's reply, Jing Yuya was very happy, and her eyes smiled like a crescent moon. On the other side, Tianjin rice and dumplings look a little lonely. They seemed to stand there without saying a word, waiting for the game to begin. In fact, he was communicating with each other and analyzing the strength of the group of people in the Turtle Immortal stream. Dumpling, the one named Li Shu, looks the weakest. The performance in the budget competition is very nervous. When the meeting is over, remember not to accidentally kill the other party. Dumpling nodded vigorously. The world's first martial arts conference, the quarterfinals, will be held in the square open-air arena. Around the thunderous day, there were crowds, many of whom were not local residents of Papaya Island. Instead, they came from far away to admire the martial artists. Witness the birth of the strongest martial artist. When you go back and talk to your friends, it's a great conversation. At a glance around the ring, there was a dense crowd, among which female spectators actually accounted for 80%. Many people were still holding signs with Li Shu's name on them. There are also a lot of love next to the name. There are countless such signs, waving in their hands. 3 years ago, Li Shu debuted as an idol in order to complete the task of Love Saint, and gained a large number of female fans in a short period of time. He thought that he had been silent for 3 years, disappeared from the public eye for 3 years, and should be forgotten. However, the facts proved to him that 3 years was not enough time for fans to forget about him. As this Kun's power, Li Shu, who was standing backstage and preparing to play, listened to the fans outside shouting his name, and his heart was full of emotion. He still can't forget the scene of him performing Kunjong on the stage over and over again 3 years ago. Every time I perform, there will be girls who scream and faint. Big brother, they all seem to be coming for you. Goku said in surprise. Others can also see the hot scene outside, even if they can't see it, the earth-shaking shout, even if they don't want to hear it, it is difficult to hear. They shouted Li Shu's name loudly, one louder than the next. Klin's eyes were full of envy. There are so many cute girls. What an enviable fellow. The Turtle Immortals were also envious, if only these girls were shouting for him. Yamcha was also stunned to look outside. He never expected that Li Shu had such an amazing charm. At this glance, there are at least tens of thousands of women cheering for Li Shu. Some people did not grab a good position, but drove the plane and hovered overhead. It's just an exaggeration. Master, you are really popular with girls. Jing Yuya said faintly. The smile on Li Shu's face was very embarrassing, and he ignored everyone's feelings. In the ring, the host looked at these fanatical female viewers in amazement, and then looked behind him. It is indeed the world's first martial arts conference, and there is no mistake. He once thought that he was in the wrong position and came to the concert scene of a certain star. Fortunately, he is a professional host and referee, so the scene can only make him stunned for 2 seconds, which is already the limit. The host quickly mastered his rhythm, and under an impassioned opening statement, the atmosphere of the scene was even higher. Let's. The host paused with the microphone for a moment, and then shouted loudly, there is a request for our quarterfinalists. As the host's words fell, the audience was boiling, filled with excited cheers from the girls. Li Shu, Li Shu, Li Shu. The audience cheered and called Li Shu's name. As for the fans of the other players, they are obviously much weaker in sound. Under the attention of all the people, under the passionate cheers, Li Shu and several other 8 finalists stepped into the ring. As soon as Li Shu appeared, a girl holding a poster of Li Shu fainted with excitement. The medical staff had been preparing by the side. In case of an accident, they hurried in, carried the girl who fainted because she was too excited and hurriedly left. The fainting of one girl did not cause a commotion among others, because they were used to it. I think this is normal, if no one faints. Tianjin Fan, who was walking at the back, looked at the group of female audience in shock, and his eyes were full of incomprehension. He couldn't understand why the girl's emotions were so excited. Isn't it just a man who looks more handsome than him? What's so exciting about that? They shouldn't worship the strong, right? Why do you like a little white face that looks so weak? Tianjin Fan said that he did not understand. When he was under the Crane Immortal Gate, he had never had the experience of being adored and adored. When others see him, they only feel fear. He is a killer, and the killer does not need the admiration of the weak. Li Shu has been paying attention to Tianjin Rice and pondering how to complete the task of reforming evil and returning to the right. In the original work, Tianjin Rice did change his ways, but he didn't remember what happened at all, so the Tianjin Fan left the Crane Immortals and joined the protagonist group. And now that the plot has changed, many things can no longer be inferred according to the original plot. Accidents happen from time to time, and no one can predict the future. In the audience area, the Crane Immortals relied on their strong strength to squeeze through the crowd and came to the front row. Among the crowd squeezed away by him, there were some strong men, but they were all easily thrown out. The domineering behavior of the Crane Immortal caused many people to be dissatisfied, but they were afraid of his strength, and they dared to be angry and did not dare to speak, watching him occupy the best position in sight. However, not everyone will choose to swallow their anger when facing a strong person who far exceeds themselves. Especially the fans who are already fanatical. Nana Hashimoto is such a woman who is not afraid of power, and after she was rudely squeezed away by the Crane Immortals, she did not flinch because of the strength of the other party. Instead, he pointed at the nose of the Crane Immortal and scolded, "You smelly old man. First come, first come, first come, know what? If it's late, just watch from behind. What kind of team to join?" The Crane Immortal's eyes narrowed slightly, looking at Hashimoto's tall chest, not angry at all, and said with a smile, "We can stand here together, although it is squeezed a little, but I don't care. You can also think about following me in the future." In the face of a bad old man's teasing, Hashimoto was angry and roared, "You want to be beautiful. Don't look in the mirror either, don't look at the smelly old man with a face. Hee hee, don't look at me old, maybe I'm stronger than your husband." Suru Sento admired Hashimoto's scowl and looked very enjoyed. Hashimoto's body trembled, and he raised his hand and slapped him. However, Suru Immortal just extended an index finger to block the slap and smacked the palm of Hashimoto with his finger. Just when he wanted to say something, Boomer, who was standing not far away, couldn't stand it. "Throw this dead old man out for me." Dinosaur number 4, who was standing next to Boomer, instantly struck, slapped the Crane Immortal flying, turned into a shooting star, and disappeared into the sky. Tianjin Fan in the ring just saw this scene, and his face changed greatly. The strength of the Crane Immortals, he couldn't be clearer. Tianjin Fan's heart was shocked, he didn't even see how the other party made a move. His master was fanned away, and his life and death are unknown. By the time he saw clearly, the strong man who looked like a dinosaur had returned to Boomer to guard him. This woman, Tianjin Fan recognized Boomer at a glance, who was with the group of Guixianliu yesterday, and was obviously their companion. The 3 eyes moved again, looking at the dinosaur man. Tianjin Fan was a little incomprehensible. The strong man who could kill the Crane Immortal in seconds, was willing to be the security guard of that woman. With such strength, he actually dared to send people under the fence, in other words, he would definitely not do it. Then there is only one possibility, that woman is not simple. Just when Tianjin Fan was thinking a lot, the host's surging voice resounded in all directions. "I think among these people, there are familiar faces. That's right, the champions, runners-up, and runners-up of the previous edition participated in this year's martial arts conference again." Quote, "The wonderful picture of the game 3 years ago is vivid in our minds. So, this year, what kind of exciting game will they bring us? Let's wait and see. The audience area burst into cheers. Li Shu, we are champions. Come on Li Shu, beat them. Li Shu, let's win the championship again. Kun Jong, we're going to see Kun Jong. Kun Jong, Kun Pom, Kun Jong, soon. There was a uniform sound from the audience area. The host wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Rao was a little unable to deal with such enthusiastic fans. He quickly roared, now. Allow me to solemnly introduce these 8 contestants again. First contestant, I don't need to introduce it. That's right, he was the champion of the previous edition. After the competition, he switched to the entertainment industry, and swept the entire idol circle 3 years ago with his one-handed kunpalm. The idol and powerful player who has won the hearts of thousands of girls, Li Shu. Quote. Boom. The audience area was even more boiling, cheering, screaming, endlessly. During this time, another girl who was too emotional fainted. Hurry up, hurry up. Medical staff quickly save people. The host hurriedly shouted, wiping the cold sweat on his forehead again. It's too dangerous, it's really too dangerous. He never expected that most of the audience of a martial arts conference would be women. Fainting with excitement at every turn is too scary. He originally wanted Li Shu to say 2 words and enliven the atmosphere of the scene, but after thinking about it, he changed his mind. Now just standing here, I introduced 2 sentences, and someone fainted with excitement. If this really makes Li Shu say 2 words, I am afraid that the scene will be so chaotic that it is impossible to clean up. The world's first martial arts conference has been held for so many years, and he has seen countless scenes large and small, from a small foreign affairs officer to a famous host now. Rich experience told him not to let Li Shu say 2 sentences. So, the host changed the process without authorization, skipped the contestants' speech, and quickly introduced the other 7 contestants. After the introduction of the quarterfinalists, the host changed his tone and roared excitedly. Now, I will announce the order of the next quarterfinals. First one, Li Shu player vs Dumpling player. Second game, Monkey King player vs Klin player. Third game, Cheng Long player vs Yamucha player. Quote. Fourth, Shizuoya player vs Tianjin Rice player. Oh my god. Unexpectedly, in the first game of the quarterfinals, Li Shu players will appear. Please stay calm. The medical staff we arranged was a bit inadequate. The host told a joke that he thought was funny, but no one bought his face, and they were all shouting and urging, telling him to go down quickly and not block them from looking at idol. The host wiped his sweat and hurriedly announced, please prepare Li Shu players and Dumpling players. The other players can go for a break first. Soon, Li Shu and the Dumplings stood face to face and ready, and the host shouted, the competition, start. Quote. Li. The host's voice just fell, and the fans in the audience had not yet had time to cheer Li Shu. I heard a loud noise, and the Dumplings flew out with their heads up, and fell outside the ring, not knowing whether they were alive or dead. They didn't even see Li Shu's movements clearly, and the game ended as soon as it began. In their eyes, Li Shu stood in place from beginning to end, not moving. Quiet. The audience was silent for a moment, and then a deafening cheer erupted. So handsome. My books are so handsome. With the momentum alone, he took that little guy off. Oh, it's so handsome. I really want to have a baby with books. Me too. Oh, I can't. I feel like I'm going to give birth now. Quote. The players watched the battle area. Tianjin fan was stunned, and his heart was shocked. Stepping on a horse. None of the 3 eyes could see Li Shu's movements clearly. How could the speed be so fast? Tianjin Rice has been hit hard. He thought that his speed was already invincible in the world. I didn't expect someone to be faster than him. And also an opponent who was despised by him. As a result, the other party only shot slightly, he couldn't even see the shadow, and there was no difference from those ordinary people. This makes Tianjin Rice, which has always been proud, very uncomfortable. Awesome, worthy of being a big brother. Yes, it's really beautiful finger strikes, clean and clean, without the slightest drag. The terrifying thing is that under such a rapid attack, the eldest brother can still retract and release freely, and control the power with ease. Yes, Li Shu, this kid's control of power is becoming more and more terrifying. The force is controlled just right, and until the point is reached, no more force is used, and no less force is used. Master is really powerful, while defeating the opponent, without letting the opponent suffer substantial damage. This is not only the use of his own strength to the extreme, but also has an extremely clear understanding of the opponent's strength. Strong. It's so strong. Jing Yuya looked at Li Shu's side face, her eyes full of adoration. Tianjin Fan turned his head in amazement and looked at the group of people with disbelief on his face. Can you see his movements? Tianjin Fan really didn't hold back and asked the question in his heart. But soon he regretted it. They Crane Immortal Flow and Turtle Immortal Stream are mortal opponents, and his current performance will definitely be ridiculed by the other party. It will also show his incompetence. However, the reaction of the group of people in Turtle Immortal Stream surprised him. The other party did not laugh at him, but nodded flatly in response. The Turtle Immortal suddenly sighed and said, "It's a pity that you followed that old guy of the Crane Immortal. Now it's still time to turn back. Martial arts practice is not for fighting and killing. Although you have become strong and have mastered the power that ordinary people do not have, you have not used your power in the right way. I can feel that your heart is painful." Tianjin Fan's pupils trembled, and there was a trace of panic in his demeanor, as if he had been seen through his heart. He has lived under the influence of the Crane Immortals and Taobai since he was a child. The ideal is to become a killer like Peach Bye. Take pleasure in killing and enjoy the fear others have of you. He thought it would be what he imagined, but when he first went on a mission, he hesitated and just broke one of the other party's legs. He also couldn't appreciate the fear in the other person's eyes. But becoming the world's #1 killer is still his ideal. Because beyond that, he didn't know what else he could do. No one taught him how to be a good person. Whether it is the Crane Immortal or the Peach White, they are teaching him how to be a bad person. How to go and kill a person. How to swindle money from those stupid villagers. But now, someone sees deep inside him and tells him that the bad feeling that makes it difficult for him to sleep is called torment. You are very talented, but unfortunately you followed the wrong person. If you want to become stronger, it is best to leave the bad guy of the Crane Immortal. After saying this, the Turtle Immortal looked at the ring again. The host also reacted at this time, excitedly shouting, "Incredible! Simply incredible! Have you seen Li Shu's movements clearly? His speed is amazing. Li Shu player, can you tell us what just happened? Why did the dumpling contestant suddenly seem to have been knocked out?" At this time, the dumpling also woke up. His face was full of dazedness, and he had no idea what was happening. When he saw that he had fallen out of the ring, the expression on his face became very exciting. He subconsciously looked at Tianjin Rice. Tianjin Fan was silent and communicated with his heart. "We lost, the defeat was very complete, even I didn't see his movements clearly. Although we don't want to admit it, we are indeed not their opponents. He's already merciful, but I won't give up. Even if I know that I want to lose, I have to know how much the gap between myself and them is." Quote. Tianjin, "Sorry, I'm too weak." The dumplings flew up in frustration, and in the shocked eyes of others, flew back to the contestant area and came to Tianjin Fan's side. In the ring, in the face of the host's questioning, everyone shook their heads, saying that they didn't see it clearly at all. So, at the strong request of the host, Li Shu had to explain. "Just now I moved to the front of the dumpling at high speed, and then stretched out a finger and pointed it on his chest, and he flew out." A finger, ordered a little, just flew out. The host roared in disbelief. "Oh my God. One finger has such great power. Can you show us again in slow motion? I think everyone wants to see such incredible power with their own eyes." Li Shu nodded with a smile, and then stretched out a finger and lightly tapped it on the host. I saw the host flying out 800 meters away with a swoosh, and his face was full of horror. But as a professional host and referee, he has a strong professional quality. Forced to endure the fear in his heart, he moved the microphone in his hand to his mouth with difficulty, and said excitedly, "Incredible. It's incredible. Did everyone see it? It's really just the power of one finger. However, who can come to save me? I feel like I will be thrown to death." Li Shu smiled slightly, and instantly appeared behind the host, bringing him back to the ring. Oh, my God, can fly. Li Shu players can fly, did you see it? In the crowd, exclamations and screams erupted again, and a young girl fainted with excitement after looking at Li Shufei's dashing figure in the sky. The voice of giving birth to Li Shu once again rose and fell in the crowd. Can the results of the game be announced? Li Shu asked. The host woke up like a dream, and quickly shouted, "Let's congratulate Li Shu player. Enter the final four, worthy of being the champion of the previous edition." With the female fans in love, Li Shu returned to the rest area. Please, the next contestant, Sun Wukong and Klin appear. Goku and Klin looked at each other and walked into the ring at the same time, their eyes full of fighting intent. Which of them will win? Yamcha asked. The turtle Immortal shook his head. It's hard to say. Li Shu agreed. If Klin plays well, the chance of winning is still quite large. The answer of the two surprised Yamcha, who thought that everyone would think that Goku had won. It seems that everyone's views are surprisingly consistent, and they are not the only ones who see it. Although Klin's combat power is only 9,999, compared with Goku's 21,999, a difference of 12,000 points, it is not a game without suspense. As the host announced the start of the game, Klin took the lead in attacking. The speed was as fast as lightning, and the two instantly fought together. The host was shocked and said, "It's gone." Sun Wukong and Klin both disappeared at the same time. Too fast, they're so fast, we can't see anything. The audience was also confused and had no experience at all. They could only hear the sound of thumping, but could not see the figure. At this moment, in Li Shu's line of sight, Klin's combat effectiveness was rapidly climbing, and his skin turned lilac. The combat power instantly reached 22,000, whether it was speed or strength, it was not under Wukong. This is the result of Klin's 2.5-year practice. He can divide his violet transformation into multiple stages, perfectly control the power of transformation, and even control the intensity of transformation. Rumble. A loud noise came in the air, and the figures of the two instantly appeared in the audience's sight. I saw that Klin's hands were interlocked, and it was a violent buckle against the top of Goku's head. Goku smashed into the ground like a cannonball, smashing the ring into a huge deep pit, and dust and smoke were everywhere. Klin looked serious and did not stop there. He knew that with this tentative attack, it was impossible to defeat Goku. Immediately, the right hand was raised, and the golden light was rapidly converging, turning into a ball of light and throwing towards the deep pit. The golden light entered the cave, and there was another loud bang, and thick smoke shrouded the entire ring. The battle between the two was like an electric flint, which directly made the audience look stupid. Especially the amazing destructive power, and the means-like movie special effects, are simply dizzying and breathless. It's amazing. Under such a strong attack, is it still possible for Goku to stand up? Quote. After experiencing the last martial arts conference, this time the host was already prepared, and I don't know when he had already put on a gas mask. The gas mask also has a thermogenic image function, which can be said to be very professional. The dust and smoke cleared, and a huge deep pit appeared in the middle of the ring. Without saying a word, the host took out a capsule and threw it on the ground, and a small helicopter appeared. He skillfully jumped up, flew above the ring, and held a telescope to try to see the scene in the pit. Since experiencing the last world-first martial arts conference, he has been practicing this set of moves in private, just to deal with the situation at this moment. The action is done in one go, without the slightest drag of mud and water. Bottomless. Bottomless. Even if I hold an eightfold mirror, I can't see clearly under the pit. What the hell is this amazing destructive power? Quote. The life and death of the Monkey King player are uncertain. I'm a little hesitant right now. Do I want to start counting the seconds? The host roared excitedly. He did not dare to rush into the deep pit rashly, he could only hover above, anxiously waiting. One by one, the audience stared at the deep pit, as if expecting something. Not long after, a figure rose up from under the deep pit. The host's eyes widened. The other party's speed was so fast that he couldn't react at all, and as soon as his eyes saw a little movement, Sun Wukong had already flown out. Klin, you're amazing. Sun Wukong floated in midair, looking at Klin excitedly. The whole person looked energetic, and he couldn't see any harm at all. Klin smiled. His skin at the moment had returned to its normal complexion, and when he needed it, he was able to burst instantly, and instantly exit the transformation state when he didn't. The technique of instantaneous transformation was learned by him from Li Shu. It can effectively avoid unnecessary loss of physical strength. Don't you still show all your strength? This strength is not enough for me to fight. Clint laughed. Goku nodded seriously. I was a little hesitant at first, but now I can rest assured. As the words fell, Goku's gaze sharpened, and a white flame rose around him, making an air-trembling sound. In Li Shu's line of sight, Wukong's combat power actually broke through the limit of the bottleneck, reaching 26,000 points. Li Shu was not surprised by this. The bottleneck of combat effectiveness under normal conditions is only the limit of their basic combat effectiveness. They can increase their combat effectiveness in various ways, and transformation and explosion are the most common means. Feeling the enhancement of the breath of enlightenment, Clint looked as usual, and with the same low drink, the white flame rose up. Burst. He will too. This is also a technique that Li Shu taught them. It's just that their explosion is far from Li Shu's explosion. They can only improve by about 20%, and they cannot achieve the 100% improvement like Li Shu. It's a pity that his basic combat power is much lower than Goku's, and the increase effect is not as good as Goku's. Under normal circumstances, he is no match for Goku, and Clint is very self-aware. Therefore, he instantly turned on his transformation, and his combat power soared again, widening the gap with Goku. The two fought fiercely together again, still testing each other, not showing all their strength. It seems that it will be a long tug of war, and no one wants to expose their true strength too early. Yamcha said calmly. If it were him, he would do the same. The turtle Immortal said with a smile. It seems that in our next match, you will bring me a great surprise. Quote. Didn't teacher Wu Tian keep a hand? Yamcha asked with a smile. I have more than one hand left, you should be careful later. The turtle Immortal said disapprovingly. Li Shu glanced at the two, and he was also a little curious about who was stronger and weaker. Since helping everyone to stimulate the bloodline, one by one, it seems that they have been reborn, and their strength has increased rapidly. No one knows where their limits are. Disappeared again. They disappeared again. Oh my God, what kind of battle is this? The host's exclaimed voice came again, and I saw that he took out another capsule and threw it on the ground, and a high-speed camera actually appeared. However, even high-speed cameras can't capture Goku and Clint's speed. The two appeared as if in a flash, appearing on the left side of the ring one moment, the right side at the next, and the sky above. Instantly appearing, and disappearing in an instant, it is dizzying. Bang! A loud noise came, and everyone reacted and quickly looked at the place. I saw a deep pit appear in the ring again, but this time it was Clint who was beaten down. Goku floated directly above the pit, his hands pressed back, and the blue energy light waves were rapidly converging. Turtle Pai Qigong. Goku's speed of charging power was extremely fast, and the time to take one breath was completed. His hands suddenly loosened forward, and the huge blue energy light beam flew out and bombarded the deep pit. There was another loud noise, and the strong light and flying smoke blocked everyone's sight. When all this disappeared, a shocking scene happened. I saw that the middle of the ring disappeared, leaving only a huge deep pit that could not see the bottom. There is less and less room left in the ring. It's amazing. If they continue to fight like this, I am afraid that the ring will cease to exist. Oh my God, they disappeared again. Can anyone tell me where they went? After the host was shocked, he looked around blankly, but did not find the figures of Goku and Clint. The audience was also confused. Their mouths were slightly open, they couldn't understand it at all, and they didn't know what they were looking at. I only heard a thumping sound, and then a whoosh, and only the sound could be heard, and no figure could be seen at all. I finally saw the figure, and before I could react, I disappeared with a whoosh. Although they couldn't understand it, they were shocked in their hearts. There is a kind of wonder, wondering who won in the end. In heaven, Yamcha raised his head and looked at the clouds, where two figures were colliding with their fists and feet rapidly. In his line of sight, the fight between Goku and Clint was clearly visible. Heavenly. The host quickly raised his head when he heard this, but he didn't see anything, but he quickly took out the eightfold mirror, although he still couldn't see anything. But I can feel that there are two amazing forces, which are colliding violently, shaking the clouds to pieces. Really in heaven. They actually fought above the clouds. It's unbelievable. Are they really human? Looks like we'll have to bring binoculars to watch the game in the future. Above the clouds. Goku and Klin collided with fists, and then the two instantly opened the distance. If this continues, I'm afraid we'll fight until dark. After Klin said this sentence seriously, his body underwent tremendous changes, and his combat effectiveness soared rapidly. He is going to show all his strength. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.